Education to order. Ms. Cock, can I have a roll call, please?
Ms. Brogan. Mr. Donnie. Mr. Mahmood.
Here.
Ms. Kwok. Here. Mr. Limbo.
Here. Can everyone please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. The Ridgewood Board of Education has been meeting in executive session pursuant to New Jersey Statute 10:4-12. The minutes of that meeting will be released when the need for confidentiality no longer exists. Pursuant to the Open Public Meetings Act, advance notice of this evening's meeting has been given to the Ridgewood News, the Bergen Record, and the clerk of the Village of Ridgewood. In addition, notices have been posted in the office of the board secretary and all of our school buildings. As you can see, Shores is going to be with us remotely today. So we're just bear with us slightly, but we're going to get through this all. I think we have Ms. Bronstein, I think you're up first, the student representative report.
Great, thank you so much. So starting up, we have a lot of girls soccer news. Unfortunately, Super Soccer Saturday this past weekend was canceled due to the fields being flooded, but they still project to have their senior night on October 17th. So everyone should come if they can. As for new players, the trunk or treat with new players companies coming up very soon. The new players pretty much create dances and perform to little kids. The trunks of cars are filled with candy. The kids can go around and get their own. I'll have the date, the next meeting. I think that's later in October. For meetings coming up, there's a 9th grade meeting taking place. Miss Woods, the freshman grade advisor, along with Miss Watson, the head of peer counseling, and other high school administrators, talk to freshman parents pretty much about what high school is going to look like for their students for the next 4 years. They talk about off-campus privileges and the absent policy, along with what classes they're likely going to take. Juniors and seniors also come in to talk and give a student perspective. I had done this last year, and I think it's super helpful for freshman parents to get a good sense of what the student life is like from the student. I always think that's very important. The peer counselors and Ridgewood student leaders received a speech from Dr. Sylvester on leadership. We talked about diversity and ensuring inclusion as leaders, and how leaders must not just welcome, but implement and invite diversity. And it was a super important conversation to be having such a young group. So now that we know very early on to implement such diversity. Project Indirect, there's a lot of news. They have been able to raise $200 to the Kiwanis Club to support Hawaii after the devastating fires that took place this past August. They also raised $200 to the Pediatric Cancer Food Truck and another $200 to the Ridgecrest Senior Living Center for Thanksgiving food and goods. They're holding an Access for All event at the Ridgewood Public Library on Saturday, the 7th, this coming Saturday. The Access for All event is an all-inclusive organization that celebrates all abilities, disabilities, and special needs. The PBA Police Department Pediatric Cancer Food Drive just took place yesterday on Sunday. The PBA is run by the Ridgewood Police Department, and it took place at Betts Fields. It had a bunch of food truck festivals and that were held for pediatric cancer research. There was fun inflatables, rides, and games for a bunch of kids to enjoy. I passed by and one of the streets next to Vets was closed, and there was inflatables throughout the whole field and food trucks lining the entire street. And it was a very lively event. So thank you to Project Interact for making that possible. They also did a food drive on Saturday run by the Rotary for Social Services. They collected food outside of Stop and Shop and helped sort it. Project Interact is able to donate so much to these organizations through their candle fundraisers. They sell candles to help get money for donations. So if you can buy yourself a candle or a bunch of them, that would help them greatly. As for clubs in the high school, the Spanish Honor Society bake sales are going on and raising money for the club, along with a lot of other school organizations. So I encourage students to bring cash if they can. The choir Nashville trip was announced for this February during President's Day weekend. I know there's more news from that from the choir teachers. So. And additionally, there are spots still open for the Japan and Switzerland trips for Ridgewood. I know the spots were, there's only a few left. So if you can definitely get a spot on those, I know they do a very good job organizing those class trips. So I think that's all. Thank you so much.
Excellent. Thank you. Can I just kind of missed it. The Super Soccer Saturday's rescheduled date was what?
I don't know if they have a rescheduling date yet, just as they don't know what the fields are going to look like. But
Gotcha.
The girls soccer, senior night is still scheduled for October 17th. So we'll see if that changes.
Excellent. Thank you. Outstanding. Okay, we're moving for the first public comment portion of the evening. If anybody in the audience wishes to speak, please come up to the podium. You have 4 minutes and welcome.
Here, could you please state your name?
My name is Lucy Fan.
Thank
I'm a Ridgewood mom with 3 students in our excellent public schools. Dear BOE members and Superintendent Ross, thank you for allowing me to speak tonight. 2 of my 3 children are at Ridgewood High School this year. Recently, I learned that our high school does not allow the valedictorian to speak at the graduation ceremony. A valedictorian is a graduating student with the highest 4-year academic ranking by GPA average. This outstanding student usually is given an opportunity to speak at graduation, along with other student leader speakers, like the student council president and the class president. This word, valedictorian, literally means the one who speaks in Latin. But our district seems to have a policy since quite some time ago that does not allow our valedictorian to speak, but still allows the student council president to speak at graduation. This policy puzzles me. Valedictorian speaking at graduation is a long-standing tradition, not just in New Jersey, but throughout the world. This act recognizes and celebrates academic excellence. And academic excellence in students is a core mission for most learning institutions. So I'd like to ask why we have such a policy. Is it aligned with our district's core values and educational philosophy? Can we reconsider it? Another RHS policy that puzzles parents like myself is that our school does not tell seniors applying to colleges their academic ranking or their percentage ranking of GPA at the end of junior year. This could hurt their chances of getting merit-based scholarship. College application forms often ask students if they are in the top 5%, 10%, 15%, or 20% of the graduating class. Many merit-based scholarships application require this ranking, such as the NJ STARS program. Additionally, some highly selective combined degree programs also require applicants to be in the top 5% in their graduating class. Therefore, not knowing their percentage ranking could put high-achieving Ridgewood students at a disadvantage when applying to college. So I also respectfully ask why we have such a policy. Is it in the best interest of all students to not rank them? Could we reconsider this policy? Our public schools are built on the tradition of excellence. Our educational leaders want the best for all of our students. But when we don't let the valedictorian speak and don't let the academically strong students know their percentage ranking, I feel that our district is downplaying the importance of academic pursuit among high school students instead of motivating them to achieve higher. With our new superintendent, I hope our district can clarify related educational philosophies and reconsider these 2 policies. Thanks for your consideration. Thank you for your service and dedication to Ridgewood students and families.
Thank you.
Hi, good evening, Susan Madison, 428 Linwood Avenue. I saw that the board was going to discuss its goals tonight. So I thought this would be a good meeting to come to and express some of my concerns surrounding recent board governance and policies. First of all, the recent budget process was the least transparent process I've seen in my 20 years in Ridgewood. The board literally presented and voted on the final budget on the last possible day. There were no community meetings, no mailer. It was very disappointing. I think given how limited this transparency was, the board should provide some high-level explanation of what happened. Why was our BA suddenly replaced? What went wrong, and what safeguards have been put in place to ensure that this doesn't happen again? Related to this opaque process, I keep hearing references by board members and staff to a surplus, perhaps as large as $12 million. Can someone tonight confirm if we have a surplus? And if so, how big it is? And also if it's within the statutory guidelines of the 4% that we're supposed to hold back. Then switching gears, I've also heard at several of these meetings that we are the only district in the state of New Jersey that does not hold annual school board elections. I know our attorney told the board in January of this year that the lack of annual school board elections was not in keeping with state statutory requirements. Quite frankly, it's also not fair to the taxpayers of this district who should have the ability to weigh in on an annual basis on the job that the board is doing. I did see that the board at one of the last meetings has asked our attorney if this situation can be fixed by a policy change. I greatly appreciate the person who did that. I am wondering what the answer of our board attorney was, and if we can go back to annual elections. If we are able to restore annual elections, I would also like to ask the board to consider expanding the size of our board. While not an expert, it seems to me that our board, which is the smallest allowed by law, is not in keeping with similar districts of our size and demographics. I think the board or the superintendent under the direction of the board should consider pulling the data on board size for comparable districts. And if we are indeed an outlier, I think this should be changed. A larger board would provide for greater transparency and cooperation. It would reduce the power of small factions, and it would facilitate more robust committee participation and oversight. In the past, there's been some concern that community participation would not support a larger board, but given that our last 3 elections or 2 elections and this one that we're currently in have been contested, I think this would no longer be an issue. Thank you for your time, and I look forward to hearing answers to my questions. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, everyone.
Welcome.
I'm prepared today. Thank you all for the opportunity to come speak to you tonight about a topic that is important to me.
Could you please state your name?
I'm Laura McKenna, 861 Bingham Road. The topic that's important to me is test scores. Yes, it's a dry topic with a lot of numbers. And I'm sure that I just lost a ton of people at home watching on TV. They've gone off to get themselves a glass of wine, but I'm going to power through this conversation and try to make numbers interesting. Ridgewood students did not hit a home run on the state standardized test this last go around. About 20% of our students, which is 1 in 5, did not meet state standards for English. About 33% did not make meet state standards for math. That's 1 in 3. That's a big number. And these scores are happening despite the fact that nearly half of Ridgewood parents say that they use tutors to supplement learning. So how do these numbers stack up to other towns in Bergen County? Has everybody had a setback because of the COVID? Well, there's a lot of different ranking systems out there for schools. Some put us up high, some put us low. But if you go to Zillow, which is what I use to look at property values, at the bottom, the system that they use is the Great School System. So if I log on to Zillow and pull up for example, my parents' address in Tenafly, New Jersey, their local elementary school gets a 8 out of 10. Middle school's a 7. The high school in Tenafly is a 10 out of 10. If I put in my own address in Ridgewood, Haas gets a 8 out of 10. BF is a 7 out of 10. And our high school is an 8 out of 10. So Tenafly gets a 10 out of 10 on this ranking system that is used on the most popular real estate app. Well, we get an 8 out of 10. And if you look at other high schools in Bergen County with similar demographics, Pascack Valley, Glen Rock, Northern Valley, they're all 9s. Northern Valley, along with Tenafly, are 10 out of 10s, and we are an 8. So, while all these ranking systems use different variables, the great school system does rely a lot on state standardized tests to do their calculations. And clearly test scores are important. They're important to home buyers. They see that number when they pull up this website. So how should we handle this? I think we should we should look at these numbers coolly. I mean, numbers don't lie. Numbers are just there. There's no bias. The number is a number. Let's take a look at the numbers coolly and then and then ask smart questions about it. Why are our test scores this way? Is it because we've taken too long to move to the science of reading? Is it because of our math sequencing? Whatever happened with all the money that we got from the federal government to deal with remediation for learning lag? I've asked repeatedly about where the money went from the ESSER money, and we don't know. So let me be clear. Test scores are not the only measure of a good education. Good schools introduce students to ideas, challenge them, provide opportunities, but they also must provide students with the most basic level of proficiency in core subjects so they can pass this very basic test from the state. For many of us in Ridgewood, our homes are our greatest investment, and that investment is tied tightly to standardized test performance. I'm glad that raising academic performance will be one of the goals that we'll be tackling, I believe, as a school district. It's a goal that's important not just to students and families, but
Ms.
to the
McKenna.
entire community. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Good evening, Julian Chilishvili, 146 North Randian Avenue. I guess it's a lot of conversation about goals today, since they're coming up on the agenda later on. During public discussion of goals in August, there was a robust conversation about using college admissions as one of the measurements for the district goals. As a parent who employs a college counselor for both of my children, college admissions are extremely important to me. But as a professional educator with more than 2 decades of experience and someone who conducted intensive research in this area, I also understand that we cannot measure something that we cannot control. College admissions landscape changed drastically at least twice in the past 15 years, with common app and accessibility to apply to a variety of colleges with a click of a button, with moving to test optional, and now it will change again after the Supreme Court decision in June. What we can measure, and many districts do this already very well, is post-secondary readiness for our kids. And I do not mean college admission test performance, because we all know that it's not an authentic data source, considering that more than 70% of students use private test prep, as the most recent senior data report shows. If not use the jargon, how do we teach life readiness? Or as the author of the amazing book, How to Raise an Adult, said, how we foster healthy self-reliance. So we can measure by how well do we engage kids in applying complex thinking processes within real world scenarios, applying their brain power to realistic tasks and making learning more engaging and enduring. How well do we teach empathy, resiliency, and perseverance, which gives individuals a job market edge? Do we teach emotional literacy and how to build relationships, how to make decisions, how to be persistent, how to self-manage, how to make goals and achieve those goals? The district is planning to teach this through universal SEL curriculum in K-5 setting, but how well do we do this in middle schools? In the high school, aside from one-off assemblies with motivational speakers and advisory or focus classes, but on the daily basis, implicitly through modeling and teachable moments, and explicitly through evidence-based curricula. How well our kids are learning optimism. 1 in 3 high school students nationwide report persistent feelings of sadness and hopelessness. Instant access to disturbing news takes a toll. Pandemics, climate change, natural disasters, mass shootings, and other unpredictable events lie ahead, which is why optimism is crucial for future proofing. Feeling in control reduces anxiety. And most importantly, how do we engage our kids in the decision-making process about their educational experience? And how do we ensure that all their voices are heard? This generation will need more than grades and scores to thrive in this automated, accelerated, and unpredictable new world. There was a lot of conversation in August about AI and how it will affect our schools. To prepare students for tech-intensive future, we cannot hold on to the 20th century learning practices. We must reimagine education and cultivate an updated skill set. Maybe life readiness for all can be another goal for this year. Thank you.
Thank you. What else? No? We have a few callers. It says Ridgewood resident.
Can you hear me?
Hi, hello.
Hello, my name is Jacqueline Hone. I am calling today to propose and request from the Board of Education to consider a comprehensive village-wide parks, fields, facility, and recreation plan. Given all of the flooding that we recently experienced, also, I'm usually an attendant of village council meetings, and there's been a lot of talks of how BOE fields and recreation facilities are not maintained, and there's a huge shortage issue. There doesn't seem to be anything as far as reporting or numbers go that can validate that. And there is a big concern in our town about fields and the usage and the maintenance of these fields. I've been a resident for about 25 years now, and the last thing that I recall was that there was a report known as the CMX report that was done in 2006, which is a comprehensive village-wide plan of all the fields and the facilities. It's similar to something that we would see in a capital reserve to maintain properties that lists every single field. So it would give us the existing inventory, their conditions. It would include a needs analysis. It would also include recommended improvements and renovations. There's also included a resource analysis. Speaking of poor maintenance on behalf of Board of Education fields, the resource analysis would determine what the staff responsibilities are, the levels, and their opportunities to improve in maintaining these fields. And I feel right now, our village wide does not have a working document that we can use to determine what our community needs are in regards to recreation and fields. And without this, we seem to be going round and round every year, or whenever there's an opportunity for space that we need a new field, we need a turf field, it has to be turf, we need more, we need more, we need more, but nobody knows exactly what more is. People complain that they're not being maintained, but we don't understand how or why or when or if. And I think that a report of that sort, the CMX report, a comprehensive village-wide look into this matter by a professional independent expert would help answer these questions and give us a plan, not just today, but tomorrow, 5 years from now, 10 years from now. The last report was done in 2006. That's 17 years ago. Since then, 3 major developments established in Ridgewood. We've also had a growth in special needs. Our schools are growing. Our population has surpassed by leaps and bounds compared to 2006. And I would encourage and request from the Board of Education if they would please consider in doing this so that we can have a clear, comprehensive, efficient plan moving forward. As far as the turf fields now being replaced, it seems like it's being replaced so often that at this point we've had to have spent millions and millions of dollars on this. We also know a lot more since 2006 regarding turf fields and their health risks. And I believe that a report of this matter is something that we really need, but also need to include public health professionals, experts, doctors, the Department of Health that can sign off and tell residents for certain that these turf fields are safe, or maybe they're not. We don't know. We have enough
Ms.
scientific
Hong?
data saying that they're not. Yes.
Ms. Hong, just please, your time is up. If you could just wrap it up, please.
Yes. So if the board could please consider that and also include the Department of Health issue and have a doctor sign off on the dangers of PFAS in the turf and risks associated with that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, Susan, you're on with the board.
Oh, hi. Yes, hi. Here we go. My name is Susan Ruan. I live at 705 Kingsbridge Lane. And I'll just piggyback a little bit off of what Jackie said about the fields. I do believe that there needs to be a comprehensive study being done on what actually is needed in Ridgewood with the Board of Ed fields, as well as what the village has. I've heard in the rumor mill that the village council wants to look at, which I don't know if they can without the Board of Ed, improving like Hawes Lower Field, if that is owned by the village or if that is owned by the Board of Ed, and making that more, that's on their radar, as well as the Ridge School Upper Field. So yeah, if we can get, that would be very helpful. Also, to piggyback off the fields, I know after there was a Facebook post on Friday after the rainstorm that someone proposed moving the football field in the high school because it is designated to be flooded because they don't want people downstream to be flooded, to the park, moving that to the parking lot and the tennis court and putting the tennis court where the football field is. And since we're getting these 100-year storms every other year, that seems a lot easier to clean a parking lot and a lot less expensive than it is a football field. And then the last is, I would like to speak about Glen School, because I know I've also heard something about them opening it to the residents that live on the other side of 17. The residents on the other side of 17 do not have their own local school. I know I've heard it was between Glen School and it was between Orchard and Glen to close many years ago. And of course they closed Glen because we're on the other side of 17. But now that the student teacher ratios in the town are increasing, it might help alleviate the pressure of student, to improve that ratio, to open up this school now to have kids from the neighborhood actually have their own neighborhood school. That's pretty much it. Thank you.
Thank you. Hello, Denise?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Great. Denise Fabiano, 618 Spring Avenue. I'm very happy to hear that ensuring an inclusive culture is a district initiative this year. And I'd like to express my strong support for the hiring of a DEI officer in this regard. Recently, the need for and the efficacy of a DEI person was questioned, the concern being that it might lessen everyone's responsibility for addressing DEI. And I respectfully disagree with that. We all have a responsibility to address these issues with our children, and hiring a DEI officer won't lessen our individual responsibilities to continue to do that. Instead, it provides a resource for everyone to work together as a community. It gives the goal of inclusivity shape, structure, and accountability. We've always had a DEI officer at the organization where I work with robust programming, and it has been tremendously valuable and formative as we deal with people from all walks of life. Not only has it made it an inclusive work environment, it has also made us an historically attractive organization for diversity in hiring and retaining, something that I think would be a great benefit in our school system. DEI officers have not only been commonplace in the workplace for years, but also at most colleges in the country, including at both of my kids' colleges. In addition, most private high schools engage DEI officers, and increasingly, public high schools, including several in New Jersey, have also hired DEI professionals. Hiring a DEI officer would also provide support to our teachers and administration as they navigate DEI issues. They're doing a great job, but we are all in learning mode, and a DEI officer will help provide guidance with curriculum, climate surveys, professional development, promoting social emotional learning, and ensuring a safe and inclusive space for everyone. On a personal level, I believe a DEI officer is critical to embrace and support students and families from all backgrounds. As the mother of a biracial family, there have been times when I would have been grateful for a DEI resource person. DEI is a complex area. Hiring a dedicated, specialized professional is a crucial next step in the inclusivity initiative. I applaud our teachers and administrators who are doing good work in this area, but hiring a DEI officer would show our district's commitment from the top down to ensuring an inclusive culture. I think we have to question why Ridgewood, which has become increasingly diverse in many respects, still only has a 1.3% Black population. Hiring a DEI expert is just one way to signal our commitment to further diversifying our community. In the Board of Ed meeting last month, there was talk of proportionality in student outcomes as a measure for success, with the gold standard being that any child could walk through that door and get an excellent education. While that is true, it doesn't go far enough. It's that we want to actually encourage children of all backgrounds to walk through that door to begin with, to feel comfortable walking in and to feel comfortable staying. Without serious attention to DEI, our students who can take 10 AP courses and get a perfect SAT score are not getting the best education they can if they go off to college without the tools to understand how other experiences differ from their own. We live in an increasingly global world, and a serious commitment to DEI will keep our students competitive, helping them to become global citizens and fostering cultural competence. Please make hiring a DEI expert a priority as part of the ensuring an inclusive culture district goal. In closing, I thank you all for your dedication and hard work. Your efforts are really appreciated.
Thank you. Ms. Milan?
Hi, my name's Christina Millian. Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. In light of the fields flooding this weekend, I would also echo what a few of the other callers have said, and I would urge the Board of Education to conduct an unbiased village-wide study from an independent source to assess our field needs and the actual demand. I feel this is crucial to ensure accurate data without bias because it seems like we've been relying on unverified figures rather than using data to drive decisions. I haven't been able to find the date of the last survey either, even though I've pinged a few Facebook groups asking people who have lived here far longer. Additionally, I would also request that medical experts come and evaluate our artificial turf, not only regarding its impact to our town's, horribly high PFAS levels, which is contaminating our water, but also its potential to cause injuries to our athletes. A 2019 study in the American Journal of Sports Medicine revealed higher injury rates on turf. And so this concern is both for our overall health of our village and also the well-being of our student athletes. And from a community outreach perspective, I wanted the BOE to know that Ridgewood doctors have already connected our village council leadership with Dr. Sarah Evans, who's the assistant professor in the Department of Environmental Medicine and Public Health at the Icahn School of Medicine at Mount Sinai. But unfortunately, the council has chosen to consult turf vendors with financial interests. And when I asked anyone on the village council at the last meeting who was going to call and set up a meeting with Dr. Evans, all I got was silence. But the BOE should know that this renowned expert has offered her assistance to us, and I'm hopeful we will show her expertise the respect it deserves. So please prioritize input from an independent expert to run a field study and use independent medical experts who can review this data and use science to help guide our future decisions. Thank you very much for your time tonight.
Thank you. Ms. O'Keefe.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Cynthia O'Keefe. I'm a 10-year resident in Ridgewood and a neighbor in the Shedler community. One of the reasons that I wanted to dial in this evening was obviously as a result of the flood damage. We know that the fields are currently being remediated. Some are turf, some are grass. And obviously this neighborhood is very concerned with turf because of some of the private wells that are near the Shedler property. But the reason I wanted to dial in was we had heard a number of conversations taking place on social media that spoke to the fact that Shedler would be the saving grace for Ridgewood, and that on an emergency basis, children who could not play on a Board of Ed field would now be bused over to the Shedler property once the field is built. The reason I bring this up is that we were told in conversations with the village council that there would be no buses allowed on the property or, traversing through the neighborhood, except for school buses, obviously picking up and dropping off children who live here. And also that there would be no lights on the field. So, I don't know if you're privy to any further details. I'm curious to know, if you are aware and if you could share some of those details. In addition, county and state funds were taken for that property. So those folks would also, anybody who could participate in like a Green Acres program or an open space initiative would also have access to that property. So I just am wondering if now it's an emergency backup for the Board of Ed, how will this be handled? And I agree with the other callers that, those studies should be conducted so that we have a better idea of, what we're dealing with. One quick last note that I want to bring up is that we've already had 2 children hit by cars in our neighborhood, and the field isn't even on the property yet. And so we're concerned about safety in our neighborhood. And as a result, we did a little stress test ourselves as neighbors, parked cars on both sides of the street, and there's literally 8 feet of space between cars parked on either side of the street. So that further creates safety hazards, and we're worried about, obviously the health and welfare of our children. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Ms. Weber?
Good evening, Mr. Lembo, and good evening to the board. I wanted to respond to a remark made by a previous speaker and speak about what the topic she brought up, which is the annual school board elections. So really quickly, board terms, for those who don't realize, are 3-year terms. And annual school board elections are required by law. So in order to accomplish this, by law, when a school board is formed, 5 seats are run at one time to create that board. So you have 2 3-year terms, 2 seats for 2-year terms, and 1 seat for a 1-year term, thus creating elections every year. So back in 2019, this board, not everyone on this board, but some members of this board were on there, and they sued the county clerk and I believe the Board of Elections to stop the 2019 elections due to the fact that the election date was changed, and they felt that some board members were not going to get their full 3 years. And it wasn't actually true, but that's what they stated. And the judge went along with this, but in doing so, the judge created an order delineating when every single seat on that board, each of those 5 seats, the year that they would be up for re-election. And in doing so, again, held up that annual election would take place. However, in 2021, the board violated that court order and ran 3 seats at once because, again, the date of the school election changed, and they didn't want to allow 1 seat to continue because they felt that it should end at that year. But they ran 3 seats at once, and then the following year, in 2022, there was no election. And once again, that's the road that we're on. Elections, and then a year without elections. So the way to resolve this is not to put more seats on the board. The way to do it is to undo the damage that was done. You have an election next year with 3 seats. So go back to how school boards are formed by law and run one of those seats as a 1-year seat. That undoes the damage that you did and puts that 1 seat back into its own year, thus bringing back our annual elections. Unlike what I don't agree with the commenter that a larger board creates a more robust board. I believe that if you look historically at how many people generally run for board seats, I mean, let's not look at 1 year. Let's look at all the years. And we would not have enough candidates to run that often for that many seats if you look at what our elections tell us. So what you're doing is you're not opening up the door. You're not closing a door on factions that controlling because there's a smaller board. What you're doing is you're opening up a door for the faction that has the most candidates, the most people willing to run, to take over the majority power on the board. So you can have single issue candidates who just put their candidates on the board to make sure certain things happen, taking over the board majority. It does not give you a well-rounded board just to put more people on it when you're historically not having enough interest in running. You're opening up a door for one faction to take over. So I heartily disagree that you make a mistake in order to undo a previous mistake. You undo the previous mistake the way the law tells you to do it, and then you decide the other issue on its merits. And thank you. It sounds like I have time. My time is up. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. The Ridgewood resident, do you have a? Hello?
Are you there?
Yes.
Hi, I'm not sure if I'm allowed to speak again. I spoke earlier. I just had one other last thing that I wanted to mention, which was in addition to the comprehensive field report that we're requesting, I found it very, very interesting that on that field report, on that report back in 2006, it identifies the communities in Ridgewood by school district. And to one of the other speakers' point, which is the Glen School, so much has changed in our community since this report was done. So much has changed in our community since the Glen School was taken away from the Shedler East Side community when East Glen School was closed. Given the numbers, I would also like to request that the Board of Ed look into reopening the East Side School of West Glen to make it an actual school. Communities are identified by school districts. So when you ask, where do you live? Most people within Ridgewood answer by, Travell District, Hawes Elementary, Ridge. I live over by Ridge, Orchard. I'm part of that community. The east side of Ridgewood doesn't have that sense of community. They are bused all the way over to Hawes Elementary School, which is the farthest point away. It's not even the closest school. It's the actual opposite. So those children don't get to walk to and from school with their classmates. Those parents don't get to socialize in the same way that other parents do. We don't get to come together as a community in our school. We have to bus. Our children can't miss the bus, stay after school without it being a burden to the parents in the regard that they would have to then figure out a way for these children to get to and from, because walking to the east side of Ridgewood, there are no streets. The only way to come in and out of the east side of Ridgewood on the east side of Route 17 is by vehicle. If the board could please look into that growth factor too in our community. And I believe that now it's time to give the east side of 17 back their school. And what's currently existing on the east side, maybe make it a joint, or maybe spread that out throughout the other schools as well. I just think we need some study across, not just for fields and recreation, but also for the school needs and how many children are currently per district. And do we need to grow and open the East Glen School back to that community? And what are we going to do as we continue to grow? So we see development. There's been a lot of changes. There have been increasing population, and I would just like to see a plan, a report, something saying, no, we're exactly the same and there's no need, or if we can actually take a look at it and assess the situation and give an analysis. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Are there anybody else in the audience that wishes to speak? Okay, there will be a second public comment portion of the evening at the end of the meeting. So with that, I'm going to close the first public comment portion. Okay. We have a few presentations. We'll start with Mr. Monahan. Good evening, and we just got to get him set up, so just give us one moment.
Okay, good evening, everyone. And should I proceed, Mr. Lembo?
Absolutely. Good
Okay.
evening.
Thank you. Good to see everyone. I'm Tim Monahan. I'm serving currently at George Washington Middle School as one of the assistant principals. I'm here this evening to present the SSDS report This is something we talk about several times throughout the year. SSDS stands for Student Safety Data System. What this essentially boils down to is a collection of incidents throughout the school year that deal with incidents where there's violence, vandalism, weapons, substance abuse violations, harassment, intimidation, and bullying, and what we call other incidents. And other incidents could be, disrespect in a class or anything that leads to student removal from school, aka suspension. So this is something that we do pursuant to the New Jersey Administrative Code. And in a typical school year, we do one reporting period for the first half of the year that takes place in the winter. And then at the conclusion of the school year in the early summer, we do the second reporting period. And we keep track of incidents throughout the year on our student management system platform, also known as Skyward. And I'm here tonight to present on the totals for the 22-23 school year. And I'll be back hopefully later this year to talk about the current school year as we reach the halfway point. And then again, in the summer, we'll submit the data for this current year. The SSDS report could be very valuable for leaders in the district. It provides feedback on student behavior. It can inform decisions on programs that can be offered for students. And it can also give us an idea of what types of trainings will be valuable for staff moving forward. Something that was new for SSDS last year, but will be in place moving forward, is also keeping track of restraints and seclusions for students that might have to be restrained during the school day or during the school year. And we also keep track of HIB programs and HIB trainings in this portal. And this all contributes to the HIB report card later in the year. So I'd like to just start by summarizing the incident totals for the 22-23 school year, which was last year. The total number of incidents that represented violence, vandalism, substance, weapons, and HIB confirmed was 42 for the entire district. Other incidents leading to removal, remember that could be anything from foul language or inability to attend detention or something like that, totaled 49. There were a total of 21 restraints and seclusions for the entire school year. A 28 HIB alleged and a HIB training and HIB programs. These numbers are 162 and 342. And I'm going to elaborate on some of this data as I go through my presentation. So I wanted to just start with a quick incident breakdown. And by incident breakdown, I mean of those 42 incidents, how did they break down? We had over last school year 9 incidents of violence, 4 incidents of vandalism, 8 of substance abuse, fortunately 0 with weapons, 21 HIB confirmed incidents, and a total of 49 other incidents leading to removal, and 28 HIB alleged. And if you're wondering what the difference between an HIB confirmed and alleged are, alleged could be something that's a violation of some sort of school policy, maybe some unkind language was being used, but the school anti-bullying specialist would have, in that case, maybe determined that it wasn't a confirmed HIB. So maybe it was a conflict between students that had some sort of small consequence, but it didn't reach the legal criteria to be an HIB confirmed. So we wanted to go into just a little bit of analysis of this information. And one thing that you may hear anecdotally, and this data I think is confirmed as we can see here, is that there has been a rise in incidents, and we're above our pre-COVID norms for incident totals in the district. We have data in the report that goes back to the 2017-2018 school year. And you can see that in that year, there would have been 31 total incidents, and as opposed to the 42 that were on the slides before. So we definitely see a higher trend line in these types of disciplinary incidents. And we kind of felt that was happening last year too, after a couple quiet years with 2020 and 2021. And we're going to dig a little bit into what could potentially be the cause of this in a few slides. And this might be one of the answers to that. Is we have a somewhat large number of HIB confirmed cases. 21 for the 22-23 school year is higher than the long-term average. So that was definitely something that we wanted to dig a little deeper into. And on a little bit more of a positive note, if we look at the breakdown of HIB confirmed cases from the previous school year, one thing that will jump out at you is that there was a significant drop off in the second half of the year. And I think this is reason to be optimistic that maybe we're slowly getting back to a quote unquote normal behavior pattern with our students in the schools. You can see we started out the first half or the first semester of the school year with 15 cases, and it drops to 6 in the second half of the year. So I think that was definitely something to be optimistic about. Something else that's notable and more reason for optimism. I think these are very robust numbers. When we look at the number of programs that are provided and staff trainings that are provided, I'm just going to elaborate a little bit about what an HIB program is. It's really nice hearing our high school representative start the meeting this evening by talking about a variety of the offerings that are going on at the high school right now. We heard about Miss Wood giving the class presentation. This is where students are kind of briefed on what the rules and the expectations are. But I also think about some of the speakers that have been brought to the district. Last year, we had a number of different DEI and SEL presentations that were provided for students. And I think the purpose of this is to get our students thinking and being more courteous and respectful, having more empathy, and just generally, having a better perspective on things. So I'm thinking about Michael McCreary and some of the other guest speakers that came to the high school and the impact that has. At George Washington Middle School, we brought in the Bergen County Prosecutor's Office to speak about the impact of bias and hate crimes. I know that was a very powerful experience. So these are just some of the 342 different programs offered for students throughout the year. And we're currently in the Week of Respect right now. And this is another one of these programs where students are participating in campaigns to bring attention to various groups that are not always represented as they should be. The 162 represents the number of staff trainings across the district, and a lot of this will come back to what are called our SABs or our school anti-bullying specialists, but it also applies to other staff. And the idea here is that these programs are avenues where we're being proactive, where we're getting involved. We're not dealing with these incidents after they've happened. We're trying to prevent them from happening. So just as a reference point, the SSDS portal does provide data for the current school year, or in this case, the school year that was just completed, and it does go back the previous 5 full years. So 6 total years, the year that just finished and the 5 before that. And so just as a reference point, I thought I'd include the 5 previous years. It might be worthwhile just to look at the incident totals, and we're going to see them drop off pretty significantly in 2020 and 21 because we were mostly remote. And I guess it's more difficult to vandalize bathrooms when you're at home during COVID or a lockdown, and it's more difficult to get in a fight when you're just online. So we did have higher incident totals in 21-22 than for 2021, as would be predictable, and even lower totals for 2019-2020, where we had a truncated school year after March 13th. But if we look at the quote unquote pre-COVID years, you can see that in 2018-2019, there were 27 total incidents across the district. And although not as many HIB confirmed as we had last year, I still see 17 HIB confirmed and 12 HIB alleged in the last full pre-COVID year. And something very similar for the 2017-2018 year, where we see 32 total incidents, so not too far off from where we are now, and 18 HIB confirmed and 26 HIB alleged cases. So I think in summary or in conclusion, it's fair to say that the incident totals for the previous school year, the 22-23 school year, clearly exceed our pre-COVID norms. This could be evidence of a higher trend line, but I could be back here a year from now and we could be reporting lower numbers. I know there are a lot of policies that are in place and a lot of people that are working very hard to see that happen. One of the primary avenues here is the HIB confirmed incidents for the previous year. Those are higher than they had been. But as I said, watching them drop in the second half of the 22-23 school year does give us something to be optimistic about. And then finally, again, the district compiled a very robust offering of trainings for students and programs for students and trainings for staff in the previous school year, and that's going to continue this year. And the next steps will be to continue to keep track of data to report at the midway point of this year The reporting period will end in January, and we'll go ahead and make sure that that's updated in the portal. The second reporting period will end when school gets out in June, and we'll make sure that the second report is compiled for that. And the district will continue to offer programs as was mentioned. That is all I have. Any questions?
Thank you. Rogan? Do you have any questions?
Looking at some of the, disciplinary reports. We saw some increases last year of activity. So I hope that the second half of the year is a good read for this year. Certainly COVID took a toll on many people. And so it's not surprising that behaviors changed without the sort of structure of coming into school and being with other adults and, extending beyond the family. Can you give some more examples? I'm sort of surprised at the number of HIB programs, 300, over 300, what was it, 342? Seems high. What are we counting in that?
Right. So a couple of points, and I meant to also say that through programs like the Municipal Alliance, that's another way that we target a program outside the realm of HIB. The Municipal Alliance works with the middle schools and the high school to provide like anti-vaping programs, to be proactive in the realm of HIB. Across the district, a lot of things would count as a program for students where they're bringing students to a point where they can learn to empathize about their classmates and kind of think outside the box. So I can give another example, just something that was meant to kind of encourage some empathy across guideline or lines with students was at the middle school last year, they brought in a group of West African dancers and put on a presentation for the different grade levels. And the idea was just kind of broaden the horizons of students, but other times it could be very specifically focused. So another example of a program was on the first day of school when the principals of the middle school or the GAs at the high school are going over the actual HIB guidelines and giving examples of what that could mean. But also, Pride Week, different events that are designed to basically to lead our students towards better decision-making and being kinder. And just anecdotally, I wanted to punctuate that by offering that I find that a lot of times these incidents of HIB, one of the things we keep hearing with students is the phrase, "I was just kidding." And unfortunately, when somebody's offended, "I was just kidding" is not enough. And they might see these things on social media. They might see these things on TikTok, and they might see it on TV. They might overhear it elsewhere. But our students just have to learn to make better decisions about what comes out of their mouth.
So would it be fair to say that last year we still had open circles? So open circle would be
Yes.
part of that. Peer counseling could be part
Absolutely.
of that. Freshman focus.
Those are programs that are listed.
Okay, all right.
And I realize
So
I
was just trying, because it sounds like, and it would, if we'd had that many assemblies come in, so it was internal as well as people coming in.
it's school programs, clubs, activities, field trips, and whether that's a higher number, it's a little bit higher than in pre-COVID years, but it's not too far outside of what we normally report to the state.
Thank you.
Mr. Manan, thank you for the report. I have just a couple of observations or questions. It's only one incident, so if you cannot provide details for singling out, but I'm surprised that at elementary school level, we can treat something as HIB, because when I've sat through some of the HIB hearings, it has to be intent, and it has to be for students like commenting on characteristics. So it's not just somebody felt bad, right? But it has to be intentional, that the student had an intent to harm for HR. So at elementary school level, do do these really rise up to a level where the student has an intent to harm other student, or is it more training them, educating them, telling them what's right, what's wrong? Are they too young to have that intent to harm other student at that it rises to HIB level that goes on their record?
I mean, I wish I could say that elementary students don't possess the intent to be harmful, but that's not true. They do possess that. And another distinction that's worth articulating here is that it's not always that there was just an intent to harm. It could be the communication that was made would be perceived by a reasonable person as capable of causing harm. So to that, what I tell students when I overhear an inappropriate word, and they might tell me, well, I was just singing the lyrics to a song that I like. And I might say, but those lyrics are offensive to someone who would hear them if they don't understand the context. So a reasonable person would know that that's not appropriate language for school. So then what we have to hash out to that point is that something that a elementary student would know reasonably shouldn't be said? And I can think of a couple of examples, both in this district and that I've experienced with some of my administrative cohorts, where it's been, that's not a word we say in school. We don't call a classmate that, and an elementary student should know that that's a very bad word, especially if there had been a previous intervention, like a warning by the teacher.
Right. So that clarifies. And the other thing I noticed again for elementary school is there's just one school where we had 4 removals, which we qualified as other incidents, and for other 5 elementary school there were 0. So are we have we looked at it? Why do we have more incidents in one specific building for removal, and what type of incidents can be for other, they're qualified like serious enough for removal, but they do not qualify as HIB?
Right. So that's a really good question. And in fairness, I don't actually have that authority where when I compile the report, I don't pick up the phone and call each of the building principals, but we do share the information for those buildings to reflect upon what's happened at their school throughout the year and make better informed decisions about how they're going to do their trainings moving forward. So I would say that it's important that we keep track of what's happening in all the schools. Of course, we want to comply with the code and report it. And if there is a series of incidents at a school in any given year, that could be maybe 1 or 2 students that had a ongoing conflict that could result in that. That's for that principal to determine. And if it's maybe a cluster of events related to something that's happening in the school, then that principal, who's already going to be aware of it, would be able to look at the report and be able to break that down with the guidance counselors or the assistant principals or the GAs that are kind of connected to that case or those students.
Right. So if it's related to some students, then yes, what you say, I agree. My question was more from the enforcement perspective. Are we consistent throughout all elementary school buildings, or are we more lenient in some versus taking action in a specific building? So that's the thing that if we can take a look, that we have a consistent policy across all schools.
I would say we have a very consistent policy. I was in an HIB training with all the district administrators, and I'll be in another one in a couple of weeks with all.
But these are without HIB, right? The removals.
Right.
With where it was other incidents where removal was needed. And for summary, at this point, you are not recommending board to take any action or allocate any additional trainings or anything like this from you don't have a recommendation for the board?
Not at this time, not personally from me, but I'm a part of the trainings that are ongoing.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Monahan, thank you again. I just had a couple, just wrap my head around a couple of questions.
Yeah.
So when we're talking, so the HIB confirmed, let's just say like there's, and I'm making this up, there's a hypothetical question here. There's an issue of violence, but with an HIB. Are we going to report it twice, or is it just, which one is it getting reported as? If there's 2, like let's say it's a violent against, it would also fall under HIB, but it's also, we have, there's 2 different number,
Yes. So something could be theoretically an HIB alleged, I'm just going to make a hypothetical
Right.
up. A student pushes another and it's the student that got pushed reports it as a HIB alleged. And let's say advances the idea that it was based on a distinguishing characteristic, whether it's body size or race or religion. And then maybe the SAB, the anti-bullying specialist, the guidance counselor, the GA, or maybe the assistant principal does an investigation and finds that this is really an assault instead of an HIB confirmed. It would get logged as an episode of violence, in that column. And it would also be logged as a HIB alleged for that reason. But there could be a student that in a different hypothetical, instead of the pushing where
Right.
somebody is physically, attacked by someone, let's say that it's some words that are said or alleged to have been said, that incident could be logged as a HIB alleged with no other incident leading to removal. If it were to be found that maybe those words weren't said, it was just an allegation. But as far as the HIB alleged reports go, we don't differentiate between, there's no third column that says HIB alleged that were also other offenses.
So is it possible that some of these could be, or they are all
Double counted?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Especially for that other incidents leading to removal. It could be an HIB alleged and it was found to be a violation of student conduct because some really not nice things were said or inappropriate things were said, but that those things were not perceived to be communications motivated by an intent to
Gotcha.
make someone feel bad about a protected class.
Understood.
Mhm.
So I just wanted, that was one. And then when we're saying leading to removal, that includes like suspensions, but
Mostly
also
suspension.
Yeah. Okay. So it's not just, got
Yeah,
it.
these are not, the SSDS report would not capture detentions. It doesn't capture the low level offenses. It would be.
Okay. And I think that was just clarifying that. And, I think you mentioned that you don't really have a lot of, any feedback, any suggestions, but just kind of monitoring the data. I also am curious, though, is there anything that's been changed in the last few years? Obviously, Ms. Brogan was saying with, we have our students, now coming back to school, but also with about reporting, because I know a lot of times, the laws are changing or
Yes.
the reportings are changing, and this could also make our numbers skewed a little bit as well.
That's a really good point. Thank you for bringing that up. Last year was the first year that the HIB law was amended to include what's called a 338 form, which basically codifies how the process of a potential HIB incident being reported to the school. It's then assigned a tracking number. It goes to the building principal, and then it's basically passed to the school anti-bully specialists, which would be those guidance counselors and other folks like the GAs at the high school. It's very difficult to know, but it would stand to reason that possibly there would be more incidents being reported because now there's a form where you can fill it out and email it in to the school. That's possible.
Okay. So we got to keep an eye on it. That's what. So it's not. It is alarming that the number is increasing, but there is a possibility that it's just that we're better reporting. So yeah,
that is definitely a possibility.
Excellent. Well, thank you.
Mhm.
Ms. Mabu, did you have any questions? Okay. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
I want to say I look forward to the next one, but I don't really kind of like.
Hopefully it'll be short.
Exactly. Mr. Shores, we have the final draft possibility of our goals.
Thank you, Mr. Limbo. Can you all hear me?
Yes.
Great, thank you so much. First of all, let me just, if I can just say a few words. Thank you, Mr. Monahan, for stepping in last year and taking over for Basil Pizzito after his terrible passing in monitoring all of our data with SSDS. We really appreciate it. Appreciate your work above and beyond there. I also want to just say on the heels of that, I know Mr. Friedman has been doing a lot of work with training, and I thought maybe he would like to have an opportunity to just give comment following the SSDS report.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Schwartz. I was gonna jump in, but thought I might come up later. But anyway, Mr. Donnie, what what you're talking about, one of the questions you asked Mr. Monahan is what comes to me. So when we start to make decisions about how we're going to look at our trainings, what, are there things going on in certain schools? Are there trends? That informs the kind of trainings you do. So we have a very robust training coming up with Dave Nash from FEA and NJPSA. And it's going to be very inclusive. So it's going to involve every school-based person who does investigations. All the principals are going to be there, and a large amount of the central office admin staff too, just to make sure everybody's on the same page and getting the most up-to-date version of what's going on, because the state changes it. They massage it. I mean, sometimes they fully change it, and then sometimes you get trends as where it's being massaged. The other reason why I like using Dave Nash is he's an attorney. So he sees these things from that point of view, and also very much from a working school-based point of view. How do you implement something, during the school day, during the school year? We started off and had a training from our attorney, Danielle Panisi, just for the administrative team to give us a kickoff. And now the next one will be much more expansive for everybody. So that's our approach to HIV. But HIV, it's a language. I mean, it's in code, it's law, it's all those types of things, but it's really like, how are we going to approach working with conflict? And how you want to approach working with conflict is looking for a resolution. The idea is not necessarily to punish people. The idea is to teach people and to walk them down a different path and have, a sense of understanding to look at a situation differently the next time.
So I see that HIB training on the agenda, but I'm hoping that you would also cover those 4 removals that I'm worried about those were not HIB. So our policy the HIB may be dictated by the state law and how state wants to handle it, and it's very well documented. But the removal, when it was not identified as HIB, especially at elementary level, is that also, that may be only district policy, right? That may not be coming from state. So that district policy is, will that be part of this training, or this is only...
There's distinctions and incidents. So what we do is in the morning, we get a lot of the technical stuff. And in the afternoon, we work through a lot of different cases that have happened throughout the state. And some, they walk along that line. So, and part of that training is to try to define, where is that line and where are we going to be on what side of it. But we do cover broader things, not just HIV, but it's under the HIV umbrella when you hire these people.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much. Appreciate that. And just to chime in on that also, reducing suspensions is something that I think is critically important, at least in terms of minimizing them to circumstances where they have to be. Generally speaking, the kinds of suspensions that are only warranted are suspensions that particularly pertain to issues of safety and welfare, where the safety or welfare of children is compromised, which then hurts our ability to engage in meaningful learning practices. Actually just shared with the administrative team this last week a report by the Commissioner of Education and the Attorney General about problematic trends in discipline. So we're having some good conversations with the administrative team. We've also been talking about identifying a need for de-escalation training for our staff and for our administrators as well, and then extending that even to students as well. It takes 2 people to escalate a situation, and in my experience, oftentimes when students do end up in a circumstance where they are found to be insubordinate, there can be circumstances where the adults are contributing to the escalation of that as much as the children are. So it is important that everyone understands how to handle those situations to not make a difficult situation worse. So we'll be sharing more about that as time goes on, but that is very much at the center of our radar right now. Moving on to the district goals, Mr. Enmore, do you have the ability to put the goals on the screen, or would you want me to share my screen?
What's easier? Whatever's easier. All right, you share your screen. Sure.
All right, hang on one second. Pardon the delay here. All good. Okay. All right, I'm going to share my screen now. Oh, I need screen sharing unlocked, please. Mr. Edmore. Thank you very much. All right, everyone, can you all see the working draft here? Yes. Great. I'm going to make it a little larger. Hopefully that's okay for everybody. So we have gone through this, we've gone back and forth the last couple of meetings. I reviewed this yet again, and the latest version of this, I've cleaned up the, we had for each of the, we had under each of the goals, we had a few bullets that sort of elaborated on the theme of the aspiration of the goal. And then we had action steps. But I found that when I looked at each of the goals from a formatting perspective, it was a little redundant. Some of the earlier bullets were redundant with the action steps, some of them were action steps. So I just moved all of those to action steps. We are also using the concept of know where we are as the kind of unifying theme. When I was looking at that, I felt like it was a little confusing and it was a little overly redundant. So I just made the goal language more plain language. So district goals evaluate and update the district's strategic plan. Goal 2 is reevaluate and formalize the RPS plan for inclusivity. Number 3 is evaluate our ELA and math programs. So there was some question as to whether or not this was only going to be for elementary. I think we were going to focus on elementary, but we have to look at our K-12 sequences. So I eliminated just the indicator of the descriptor of elementary. And then we have evaluate the state of the district's finances and facilities. So again, with a little more plain language, I think it makes it clear what the different focuses are here. Additionally, at the top, I did add this concept of a theme to make it clear that the primary focus for the year, being that we've said all new administrative team, or largely new administrative team, is that we're going to work to establish a baseline. So these goals are not so much about specific and discrete actions as much as they are about strategic actions. They're really about our strategy is basically built around first knowing where we are and knowing what our current baseline of performance and our status is. So I use the language here, the district will establish a common understanding of the current state of our schools by engaging in meaningful inquiries, selecting important measures, which is what most of these are about, and establishing baselines against which district and school improvement efforts can be measured. Outside of that, I didn't take anything away from the points, the items that were added by the board members in the past conversations. I did try to clean things up a little bit. I also tried to neatly tuck them together. You'll also notice that there is a bit of a sequence to the action steps, so they're not random. I tried to make them logical and sequential. So for example, for the strategic plan, it starts with developing a timeline for engaging stakeholders, presenting a state of the schools address that shows where we are, looking into a consultant possibly to develop a 5-year strategic plan. I also use the language here that our goals may include, so we're not tying ourselves into having to hire a consultant. I also added here to incorporate the following priorities within the new strategic plan. That is the articulation of I just realized we decided that we were going to change this to a profile of a graduate for RHS. The articulation of the role that generative artificial intelligence and machine learning will play, etc. So these will be important elements to include within the strategic plan. This is also where we talked about college admissions and a test optional application environment. We included mental health needs of students. And then we talked about some of the more strategic and some of the kind of programming items that we might want to focus on. And then we emphasized here, there was a comment in the last meeting about using our district website for a frequently asked questions document and making sure that we're sharing out the work that we're doing with the public. So each of the other goals follow that format. For the members of the public, you should know the board members have had a chance to see this. So board members, to the extent that you want to discuss this right now, I'm happy to engage in some conversation with you. I know we had a suggestion from one of our community members to expand on I believe it was the inclusivity goal. So, but I would open it up to all of you to provide feedback and share with me your thoughts.
Thank you. Ms. Brogan, do you have any? Sure.
Brogan, I'm sorry, I'm having trouble hearing you.
She just wants to review it after the comments.
Look at it based upon the comments that we heard tonight. So,
Okay. Mr. Dunn,
I
I
need a
think you
minute.
had some comments now, so. while
Yeah,
you're reviewing.
so Mark,
Come back to you.
I think most of the comments that I had earlier regarding ELA math and proportionality for the vendors and staff, those are all already there. I don't see those removed. You just refined the language, so which is fine. I think in the goal number 4, a lot has changed in last 2 weeks, right? In 2 weeks, we started hearing about, which I forwarded you some of the comments from social media and council meetings where BOE is being blamed to some extent, rightly or wrongly, for our field maintenance, for our the number of fields, the field scheduling software that the board controls. So and then so that was before the flood. All of those conversations happened before the flood. And then recently we had the flood in last 2 days. So I think in number 4, we have to add a 7, or that's what I think we should add a number 7 bullet point, or expand one of them to include buildings and fields. So where we are saying RPS building, so we should spell out field somewhere, because the field and field use policy, because if I go back to the public comments, some of those, and not everything has to be part of these goals, but if I'm understanding what they are asking for is the maintenance plan, right? So what are the deficiencies we have identified in the maintenance, where and based on one of the recreational coaches, what I understand is that we have enough fields within or we have the right contract in place. We just have to make sure that that contract is enforced, and the custodial staff is doing what they are contracted to do for mowing, sprinkler maintenance, all of those things. So wherever that will go, that we just have to make sure that those contracts are being implemented. Then for utilization and what is the current utilization, whether are we utilizing all the fields or not, or what are reasons for not utilizing, for example, orchard. Maybe if we can generate a report from the software that we are using. So if now we are using a scheduling software, and that software is being used for all district-wise scheduling between council fields and the district fields, we can generate a report from that. Then the CMX report was mentioned. I just did a Google search, and I found a comment from Ms. Brogan from 2007 about the CMX report, that CMX is the vendor name, and the report name was a comprehensive parks and rec master plan, I think.
I have it.
You
It's from
have
2006.
7,
Yeah, Shore de Palma was were the consultants. that
Exactly.
were
Yeah,
used.
that's what the comment says, and they are now called CMX. So if we can maybe make that report public, but that may not go as part of the goals, but we can maybe make that report public. And
Well, it's 2006, but yeah, I mean, it's worth a read through.
right.
Yeah,
So
definitely worth a read through, but it's
may
old.
it may be old, but it will give some context that why in 2008 because there is this discussion there that in 2008 it was decided to turf the field, and then what changed, right? So it will give the context that whatever happened during that referendum, why that happened, what was the rationale behind that may have come out from that report. So at least if we have that report, if we have the report that is coming out from our the field usage software, then we have data to see the current state of the fields and the utilization. And then I don't know what the result will be, what discussions need to happen, but at least that will make the information available to public. And that's what I think most of the theme is here, know where we are, right? From most of the goals are know where we are. So if we can make those things public. And then in this facilities part, in district goal number 4, we have to mention field somewhere if we are mentioning building.
Did you just say you Googled that? So it is public,
So no, so I Googled it. So what is public is our minutes. So our minutes say
okay.
that Ms. Brogan mentioned that a special board meeting happened on November 12th at high school, where comprehensive park, field, facility, and recreational master plan prepared by
So you
school
didn't find it.
department.
That was what I was asking if you
Right.
found.
Was
the-
that in 2007 that we had that? I said that?
Yeah, in
Because we
October
did
15th.
we did it in 2000, like this,
Oh, okay.
I'm gonna say that like the spring.
Right.
I
Gotcha.
don't know,
Okay.
So I just Googled for
at some point, we
CMX.
did some work in 2006
Yeah.
and then, yeah.
So it says that now known as CMX. So I think based on reading what I'm reading, School de Palma is now known as CMX. So, but it's a
Gotcha.
comprehensive master plan. So if all I'm saying is know where we are. So if we have this report public, and if we generate a report from our facility use software that how many fields are being used, which fields are not being used, what's our current inventory, I think that will just help with the bigger discussion that's happening in the district. And of course, the maintenance, any contracts that we have in place for current maintenance, that should be enforced.
Okay, so thank you for all of that. Let me show you show you my thinking here. So first of all, let me just go to the maintenance piece. And that's the spirit of this one: develop a system for evaluating the efficacy of vendor services, and effectively evaluating those vendor services. We're currently auditing, as you all know, the agreement that we have with Aramark to get services provided for the district. But in addition to evaluating the contract itself and the service that we're getting, we're also evaluating the systems that we have in place to ensure that they're implemented properly. So I think this speaks exactly to what my concerns are with that. We can say including facilities vendors, but this certainly satisfies me. Do you think we need to be more specific than this, Mr. Donnie?
No, I think because you changed building to property, I think we are good, because if you were mentioning building, then we should also mention field. But because this is part of the overall facilities, then vendor services is part of facilities vendor. So I think I'm good.
Yeah, and so I did change that. So that was the other piece too, is this develop master site plan for each RPS property, not just building, including ambitions for learning spaces. And I just chose to use the term extracurricular features, but really what I'm talking about are, by saying that, I mean fields, auditoriums, courts, things like that.
Yeah, I think I'm good.
Okay. And then I added this whole line. I don't know if you saw that while we were talking, but to conduct a facilities needs assessment, giving consideration to prior studies as well. I think that's fitting. And it's not really, it's implied, but it's nice to call it out specifically.
Right. When I read those minutes, the prior report costed in 2007, it costed $49,000. So I'm not.
It makes sense to start from that.
Yeah. So let's make that public first, and let's look at that, whether we need the whole that level of study again, or will that be an addition to that, right? If something costed to 49,000 in 2007, that must be very comprehensive. Hopefully.
I think the cost was split between the board
Right.
and the village.
Right.
Yeah. Mhm. I got a chance to review the inclusivity goal, and I believe
Just goal 2.
that is goal 2. And I think you captured what we had talked about. I think I want to say to the public, because we've had a lot of, not a lot, but we've had some public calls to hire a DEI coordinator for the district. And all along, I thought, we need to find out where we are, what we're doing, and evaluate where we are, what we're doing. And then during budget, it's a budget really decision. See what the recommendation is and the value that can add. So I don't think I've not heard any discussions that we are opposed to that. I think what we wanted to do first is find out where we are, how we're doing, evaluate the processes that are in place, and then move forward. Is that, I think that was really
Right, so-
most of our discussion.
Right, the way I see that personally is this is what we are asking from, we are representing the community, and this is what we are asking the administration as goal for DEI. And then if Mr. Schwartz comes back and says, okay, to implement these goals or to achieve this, when this evaluation of effectiveness is done or identify support needed for faculty is done, if he comes back and says, okay, we need a dedicated officer for that, then I'll support that.
Yeah.
So it's based on
Yes.
superintendent's recommendation
Yeah.
to achieve these goals.
Well, I was just trying to articulate that because I don't think the intention that I heard was that we are, opposed to this. What I thought is the intention is let's understand where we are. And I think we all realize that we've had some years where we haven't had that much robust data and discussion about it. So here's our opportunity to do it. I think the goals are well done, Mark. So I thank you for your work on that.
Yeah, I think as part of goal, it's my understanding, we cannot say our goal is to hire a DI officer. Our goal is to implement these changes. And then if the superintendent comes back and says, okay, for this, we need to hire somebody and this is how I'll make the budget, then we vote on that budget.
Right.
I'm good with everything. Actually, I had read it earlier. Thank you, Mark, for a great job here.
Mark, can you put goal number 2 again? Can we just, since we just talked about that? Okay. Because I have an older copy. What's the last one again? A indication. Yeah.
E,
A, B, C, D.
it goes to E. Goes to E.
It goes, because yeah, I think. So can you talk more about the establishing of recruitment and retention committee to ensure equitable and inclusive best practices and consistent process guidelines? What is that retention committee, that recruitment committee?
So we talked about this as a strategy, and it was a recommendation out of I believe it was a recommendation out of the administrative group to put together a district level committee of administrators, teachers, anyone qualified to inform and review our practices, our hiring practices, to ensure that when we are, and I'm going to speak to the spirit of what I mean by it, because as I'm reading it right now, probably could use some clarification. But the idea is to have a committee of folks who could inform and provide feedback on our practices to ensure that we are, in the way that we are posting our positions and recruiting for our positions, that we are attracting candidates from diverse backgrounds, diverse ethnicities, diverse racial identities. So that way our students, we're being as proactive as possible to diversify our faculty so that our students can have the privilege of learning from individuals from varying identities and backgrounds.
And what is your expectation of how this committee would actually work? Would it work in advance of, say, a job posting? Would it be headed by the HR? Would it be separate from HR because it's made up with,
I understand what you're saying. I understand your question. Yeah, you're reading it as an administrative committee that actually makes administrative decisions.
Yes.
And that is not what I'm referring to. So it wouldn't be like a board committee or something to that effect. It's more along the lines of like a consultative committee is what the spirit of that is. So in the past, like we've used in the districts, you might remember there was a district evaluation advisory committee that was required by the state. And that basically had different stakeholders from within the organization, parents around a table to discuss and to make recommendations regarding best practices and teacher evaluation. That's more along the lines of what we're talking about. It would be a group of, we have a lot of interested individuals who have expertise and career perspective, both internally and as part of our community who are not part of our schools, who would make for, be able to provide really great input when we evaluate our job postings, we evaluate our retention practices. It would be sort of an advisory committee.
Got it. Thank you.
Mark, on goal number 4 in bullet number 5, where we have develop a master site plan for each RPS property, including ambitions for learning spaces and extracurricular features.
Hang on 1 second. I just saw a way to clean that up to make that a little clearer. Give me 1 second. I'm sorry. We're working in real time here, folks.
That's the way to get things done.
Okay, I think that's a touch clearer. We'll come back to that a little later. Sorry, Mr. Donnie, what were you saying?
So in goal number 4, point number 5, or number 4, where we are saying basically facilities needs assessment or develop a master site plan. Any part of any of these two, can we look at what is the current number of students that we are busing from east side of 17 to Hawes, versus what's the number that is required to run a school there? Because there are anecdotal evidence that, or talk that number of young families have increased. So instead of running all of our special programs at one building, can they be distributed? And if we are running that building 8 to 5 essentially with administrative staff and all other stuff, can we just evaluate what's the right proportion there?
So you're proposing that we would conduct some sort of like a districting transportation study of our elementary schools?
No, I think if
Just
I
for one school?
yeah,
just-
if I understand you correctly, this has been a concern raised by a segment of the community saying, talking about one school in particular that decades ago at some point transitioned from a local community elementary school to a facility that just housed the special education population. So now the demographics have changed, and in conjunction, there is a movement to mainstream, to integrate. And so is there a way that if we do a study, maybe based on fresher data, more fresh data, it would make sense to perhaps change the composition of that school and make it more of a local elementary school rather than busing the children there to a different school, and also satisfy some of the more current thinking in terms of unified education.
So I am, if it's a matter of public interest and concern, which it clearly is, as it was stated tonight, I'm happy to look into it. I think for the spirit of the district goals, I think we send a lot of messaging when we put out the district goals. And so something to be that specific about one specific school and one specific scenario, I don't know that that's with the spirit of what we've been including in the goals. But the next step of what I would be doing in unpacking these goals and turning these goals into action steps would be to include some more discrete measures. And I'd be happy to include that as part of what our analysis will be to achieve these specific overarching goals.
Would that also be number 5 too? I mean,
that's what I mean. Yeah, the number 5 and even even number 4.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would see that as something that would be part of those steps.
That we pushed in there a little bit.
I do agree with Mark, guys. I mean, this is
We keep
very,
going.
very
Yeah,
long. This is
there's
a
a lot
very
of-
long 1-year goals.
Yeah.
Document.
Yeah.
I've never seen a 1-year goal document this long, so I think we have a lot on here already.
Yeah.
Definitely agree with you, Hunter, that it's something we need to do. I don't think we see in the goal. I think we should just make sure we do it.
Yeah, I think.
I do think you have to look at Haas School. Oh, I think there's close to 200 children at Haas schools, right? And we have our 3 and 4-year-old, both special ed and regular general ed students in our preschool program there. It'd be interesting to look at, but the wisdom would be that preschool is, one pretty great place for
Yeah.
kids. And Hawes School closed in, I think it was, I want to say 1986.
Glenn School.
Excuse me,
School, yeah.
Glen School
I was in
closed.
third grade.
Yeah,
I
right.
remember. I remember it was a big to-do.
Yeah. And then all of the catchment areas for each of the schools was also changed. So
Yeah.
Travell gained some of Somerville, Somerville gained some of Hawes,
It was
Orchard. I mean, so everything was moved around. It was very controversial at that time. So we'd have to really look. Our enrollment data is down from a few years ago. Population may be up. When we were looking at the four, at least three of the buildings, I think it was a net of 16 students total.
Right.
So what the apartment buildings, as they filled, seemed to attract people who wanted to come back into the community, older adults, people who downsized, maybe within the community and moved there. So the projection, that was the projection that we had. I think it was 21 students, we thought. So it was under that projection at the time. But and so we didn't have that influx of students at that time when those buildings opened and filled. So I'm not opposed to looking at these options, but I think we also need to be cognizant of what that school is used for. Sometimes people don't really understand or know, because I've heard this over the years. And then the reopening costs. And it seemed to me that there might be some facility upgrades that are needed. Certainly, then you have staffing needs. And so the budget begins to grow. Not opposed, but just saying that there are a lot to evaluate in it's not just let's reopen and move kids around.
Right.
It's more complex than that.
Yeah,
Right.
I
The
think
school's not empty.
we all understand that it's not easy and nobody's asking to change anything. The question was just to evaluate.
Yeah.
And look at what's the current cost of busing those students, and then what's the total number, just to know, right? Unless we know the numbers, unless we have the data, we are just assuming things. And a lot of our elementary parents have talked about increasing class sizes. And what I think I understand what the building is being used, and slowly we are increasing number of administrators there, or they're planning to. So when you add administrators in a building and you're making a building fully functional with those administrators, that neighborhood will come and ask us that, okay, now you have similar costs that you had before. So why are we running some programs for out of district students? Because I would be 100% okay if that was just serving Ridgewood students. But when we are talking about expanding that building and expanding the number of classes, we are talking about attracting out of district students. So if we have extra busing cost, if we have class size issue across all our schools, if we are spending same amount of money on administration and the building maintenance, then the question comes that should we serve Ridgewood students first, or should we be getting students from outside? And those programs can still thrive if we move some of these classes from other schools back to that building, and those can run in these buildings. So we are not saying that we'll not run those programs, but those programs can still run for Ridgewood students, but limited for out of district. That's the point.
I think so. I agree with what you're saying. I think that by finding out what needs to be.
All we are saying,
yeah,
this whole goal,
yeah,
I think we all want our superintendent to succeed. District goals are for the superintendent. And I think none of these goals require concrete, like drastic change. Most of these goals this year are for know where we are.
Exactly.
So we are not asking to drastically change anything. We are just saying, okay, where we are, reporting on that, and then come up with the action plan for that.
Agree. I think it really captured, I think, all of our ideas. I see everybody's comments are represented throughout.
So I'd like to move these goals as presented tonight and edited.
I second.
Ms. Cott, when you get a moment. I didn't think you were expecting that, so. Yes, absolutely.
Ms. Brogan,
Yes.
Mr. Donning,
Yes.
Mr. Mahmood,
Yes.
Ms. Quack,
Yes.
Mr. Lembo.
Yes.
Thank you, Mark.
Yes, thank you.
Good
Yep,
work.
Thank you, Mark.
Did it.
I believe it was Mrs. Fabiano when she spoke. She made a suggestion about focusing on the goals, making it explicit goal to attract families of color, as I interpreted it, or diverse families from diverse backgrounds as well. And although in our conversation that wasn't memorialized before the vote, that is something that I think is a really great consideration and we'll look into within our action plan. So I just want to acknowledge that.
Thank you. Ms. Schwartz, do you have anything else to report now that we're done?
Yes, I do. Thank you so much. And I wonder if maybe, given a lot of things that I'd love to be able to acknowledge if the board would consider possibly over time moving me up just a little bit, maybe before presentations to give my superintendent report. Just because I like to acknowledge some folks. I again want to acknowledge and thank Mr. Monahan for coming out, representing the district. You know, he's based out of GW, and he's given a pretty important high-level district report. So really appreciate him. I also, just for those who have the concerns, I also want to just acknowledge the how frustrating the flooding issue is for our community, and particularly for our kids who are getting bumped off of fields that they love to play on. And it really is unfortunate. We did have a meeting that I was invited to join. That was a coalition of the village. There's some representatives from the board. We had county representatives there. We had a local assembly person. We had a senator, and we had members of the representing the county and also the Department of Environmental Protection. It was a pretty large meeting. And it was great to have so many people interested and willing to see improvement. I have heard of the flooding, but it was really interesting the timing that we had that meeting and a week later we had this flooding incident. I was there early in the morning and I was watching the brook water level rise. And one of the things that came up in the meeting was that we should be looking at raising the footbridge, and that footbridge, there was kind of a hypothesis that footbridge gets clogged up with debris and then that triggers all of this flooding. I can tell you, having stood right next to that footbridge as the water was passing under it with inches, and then again seeing footage over the course of the day, that it is not as simple as that footbridge being raised to resolve this issue. This is a very significant issue. When that water level starts coming in, it just pours over top of the banks. It's, when we talk about it, it's not like water is just pooling on our field. If you've ever been there, and we have footage of it now, it just flows straight across the football field. So that is not a simple matter of just the water's being diverted or it's spilling over and it's just accumulating. The whole field itself becomes part of the water flow. So we need, I'm committed to finding out what it is that we would have to do to get this done. I'm really appreciative of the partnership that we have right now and brainstorming with the village. We have a new village manager, Keith Kasmark. He has some experience working with the Army Corps of Engineers to figure out solutions as well. So we clearly have state level of attention. We're really interested in seeing what resources we have available through the federal and state government. But we're also interested in just even practical local solutions. But I assure all of you that and I understand that this storm as of last Friday was relatively mild compared to some of the disasters that we've seen. And I will tell you, having seen it firsthand again, that the solutions are going to be big picture solutions. So we're going to be pursuing those and understanding what those are, and invoking the best professionals and agencies we possibly can to try to figure out how to resolve this. In the meantime, I also want to commend our facilities team, particularly Mr. Damian Smith, some of our Aramark partners, and particularly Keith Cook, our athletic director, who they were mobilized over the weekend. They were there first thing on Sunday mornings when the water receded, with Landtech, who is the company that we've used for that remediation in the past. Already first thing this morning, they had a plan of action. I know they're working with Ms. Cott to provide her with quotes, and we're hopeful that we're going to have we'll be back on those fields in 2 weeks or sooner. So I know in the past this has gone on for some time, but due to their swift action and mobilization, we are going to be able to. It won't be as long as it's been in the past. Thank you to the board for approving the district goals. I had a little comment on here about them, but we already handled that. I also want to plug the superintendent coffee for everybody again. Remember, the superintendent coffee is going to be normally the Thursday before the second meeting of the month. So this month it will be on the 12th. So Thursday the 12th. Please join us. And then we've got enough to do here, so I don't need to talk forever, but I just want to just say that I've just a couple things that we've been working on that I've been really proud of. First of all, it was a joy to meet with the Federated HSA. We had a really nice meeting a couple weeks ago, and we're actually going to meet again this week. So I really appreciate their partnership and collaboration. Looking forward to mobilizing together and getting some great things done for kids. And then I also want to share just some cool projects that we have going on. We've already talked about HIV training. We've already talked about suspensions and the efforts that we have there and training we have there. We had a resolution to approve training, or have a resolution up for the board to approve some more training in artificial intelligence for our teachers. We're also doing some pretty interesting and cool things behind the scenes. We're working at developing a really meaningful principal evaluation process, which I think that I've heard from our administrative team that they've been really looking forward to having the opportunity to engage in more coaching and a more participative process in their evaluations, which is really important because often in all the things that have to happen in a district, principals don't always get and administrators don't always get the support and attention that they need. And that's a really important priority for me, to make sure that they all have the benefits of people at central office to support them, to coach them, and to learn alongside them. And I also wanted to share that I want to give a little plug to our technology team. Over the last few years, our technology team has been building out a really incredible capacity to build data sets and data visualizations in the form of dashboards and automated reports, which has been something that I've been trying to accomplish in every district that I've been in. And I've resorted to looking for software solutions to be able to do this kind of create these data feedback systems with data visualizations. And I was so pleased in some of my initial conversations, especially with Mr. Serhi Maroon, to hear all of the work that his team has been doing. And we had a meeting on data visualization and dashboarding a couple weeks ago. And I'm so impressed at how far along we are. So really looking forward to, as the year goes on, being able to have automatically generated reports regarding enrollment, regarding on any of the trends that we're concerned about, attendance, absences, grades. We have a really excellent capacity to automatically generate in real time these kinds of reports, which we'll be rolling out to the board. And then it'll take a few months to get to a place that they're really robust, but we're going to have some starting very soon, so that you'll all see this capacity that they've been working on. And despite all the transitions in the last few years, they've been doing this work rather quietly out of their own commitment to making sure that we have evidence-based practice in the district. So again, shout out to our technology team. They're doing a great job. I think that's enough for me right now. Thank you, Mr. Limbo.
No.
Mike, I actually have a question on when you were saying you met with village council, with different at the county and state level representatives. The studies that we've seen have really addressed been more there were 3 options, and with different price ranges, and obviously those price ranges will not be current, so considerably higher now. But as the climate change impact, or there's certainly been every 100-year storm is literally happening every other year. And since that field was put in, I feel like we've done it like this could be a fourth or fifth time. I've actually lost count. So given some of the changing dynamics, when you think about solutions, is it possible to think about it in a much more dramatic fashion that does, where the costs of it and the management of it doesn't fall strictly under the Board of Ed? For example, if it means not just the footbridge, really looking at maybe elevating the field or something very, very dramatic as like that. If you could keep that also in mind so that we are not, sometimes it does feel like putting a Band-Aid on a big open wound. So if we could be really comprehensive in that approach, and if the costs of doing something so dramatic but permanent is far exceeds something that our budget can handle, maybe it becomes a referendum question. And maybe when it rises to the level of referendum, then you can get some state and county aid. And that could help with the cost of that. So if you know, looking very dramatically, not just perhaps repurposing what we had thought about in the past.
Yeah, I mean, the county is committed to trying to raise the bridge. They believe that that is going to allow water to pass through more quickly, and that would be great. I'm not talking about the footbridge, I'm talking about the arched bridge. So there seems to be some interest in that, and that may make a difference. But based on what I saw, I agree, that's my point exactly, is that we need bold solutions, because this is not going to be a simple matter of a small berm or raising the footbridge, a couple feet. So that's not going to do it.
I agree. Thank you.
Okay. We are moving along. We have our consent items. Move, we have A, attendance at conferences.
Ms. Brogan,
Yes.
Mr. Donnie,
Yes.
Mr. Mahmood,
Yes.
Ms. Quack,
Yes.
Mr. Lembo.
Yes. E, administration.
I move administration.
I'll second.
Ms. Brogan,
Yes.
Mr. Donnie,
Yes.
Mr. Mahmood,
Yes.
Ms. Quack,
Yes.
Mr. Lembo.
Yes. C, curriculum and instruction.
So just quick question on this one to Rich and Mark. It just seemed a little high to me, the numbers, for like a 6-hour workshop. Is that the norm? Have we shopped this around, or?
Well, what are we talking about here?
Both of those, so number 2 and number 3.
D2 and 3.
Yeah, it's
Okay.
3,500 for a 6-hour session on AI, and then 3,700 for a 6-hour session on HIV. Just curious if is that just the going rate?
Yeah, unfortunately, fortunately, we got a discount. Unfortunately, it was a discount from a much higher number. I mean, they're very high quality vendors. I think it's important to use them, particularly, well, not particularly, both of them. The AI, we're bringing all our tech coaches in the entire district in. I also felt it was pretty important to have these in person and not online. So there is a slight cost, associated with that. With that said, we will have a relationship. So not everything will be a dollar figure moving forward. So there's some materials that we get as well as a part of that.
For the AI piece, I assume that's like a trainer kind of model, right?
That's what, yeah, we're going to train our key people and then they're going to head out.
How do we ensure that they get it out to the staff?
That's through the tech coaches at the individual schools and that apparatus. So Miss O'Neill and I have been working to make sure that they then go in, offer workshops, and give trainings to the staff at the building level.
Our principals and supervisors are involved in the AI training too, are they not?
Yeah, they're all going to be at that training as well. So not just the tech coaches, but the whole admin team.
Is it something we can record so that way the staff that are not there in person can just listen to it later potentially?
So I can ask, but I doubt he's going to let us record it. But I will ask.
My goal is that this gets to everybody, right? But then just stay with the trainer.
Yeah, well, we have the same goal. Yeah. This particular trainer did a week in Ramsey this summer. That's how we came across him and was really, really well received. So that's why I want to get people that are engaging and can engage.
Awesome. I'll move. See?
Didn't I second? Or-
Not yet.
Oh,
No, not yet.
second,
Ms. Brogan,
yes.
Mr. Donny,
Yes.
Mr. Mahmood,
Yes.
Ms. Quack,
Yes.
Mr. Limbo.
Yes. I have D, human resources.
I move human resources. And
I'll
thank
second.
Jamie, who's not here.
I'll second. Yes.
Ms. Brogan,
Yes.
Mr. Donny,
Yes.
Mr. Mahmood,
Yes.
Ms. Quack,
Yes.
Mr. Limbo.
Yes. And skipping to page 12. We have E, finance. And just before we move this, I just want to recognize the Somerville Home and School Association and the Ridge Home and School, Ridge Homes and School Associations for their generous donations. Again, I saw the list for the assemblies and I know the kids for all the elementary schools always get such a kick out of it. And the birthday book program is another fantastic program as well. So thank you again for the generous support of all of our HSAs. Oh. And I'll move.
A second. Oh, just a minute. Are we moving just one?
It just, I was moving for all of each
Yeah,
finance.
right, just that.
Yep.
I'm sorry, when you said just one?
Yeah, I'm sorry, just, it's one, it's all the exceptions of it. I was,
You do see the approval of
There's,
the additional.
there's two, there's two, there's a second one too.
yes, I'm sorry, I did
wanna
see
make sure
those.
it
Yeah, I
was-
don't have that on my agenda, but I did see those. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Brogan,
Yes.
Mr. Donny,
Yes.
Mr. Mahmood,
Yes.
Ms. Quack,
Yes.
Mr. Limbo.
Yes. Now we have resolutions and motions not included in the consent agenda. We only have one. A. You want to vote on it? Then we have to read this too. So do we want to vote and then?
No, I think you have to read it first.
So the adoption of the resolution of censure. Whereas the above captioned matter arises from a complaint that was filed with the School Ethics Commission on November 4th, 2020 by Lori Weber, the complainant, alleging that James Morgan, respondent, violated multiple provisions of the School Ethics Act. Whereas at its meeting on April 27th, 2021, the commission adopted a decision finding probable cause for the alleged violations of New Jersey statute 18A:12-24B and New Jersey statute 18A:12-24C in counts 1 and 2 and New Jersey statute 18A:12-24.1G in count 3 of the complaint and transmitting the above captioned matter to the Office of Administrative Law, OAL, for a plenary hearing. And whereas the Administrative Law Judge, ALJ, issued an initial decision dated December 1st, 2021. And whereas at its meeting on February 25th, 2022, after thoroughly reviewing and considering the full record, the commission voted to adopt the ALJ's conclusion that the respondent violated New Jersey statute 18A:12-24B, New Jersey statute 18A:12-24C, and New Jersey statute 18A:12-24.1G, and the recommended penalty of censure. And whereas New Jersey statute 18A:29C, the commission's decision was forwarded to the Commissioner of Education, Commissioner, for final determination on the recommended penalty. And whereas the following issues of the commission's decision, neither party filed an appeal and/or exceptions with the Commissioner of Education. And whereas by decision dated April 14th, 2022, the Commissioner of Education concurred with the penalty recommended by the Commission for respondents' action in connection public comments that he made regarding litigation filed by a fellow board member and his failure to recuse himself from executive session during litigation. And Whereas New Jersey statute 6A:28-9.11D.
Sorry, that's NJAC, not SA, not statute.
Oh, sorry. JAC 28-9.11D provides that a penalty for censure, suspension, or removal from resolution shall be adopted at the commission's next meeting following the commissioner's imposition of the sanction, and the resolution shall be read at the board's next public meeting following adoption by the commission, and shall be posted in such places as the board posts its public notices for no less than 30 days, shall be published online from the district's website if available for no less than 30 days, and the reading of the resolution shall be memorialized in the board meeting minutes, and once approved, a copy of the minutes shall be forwarded to the commission. And now there be resolved that the commission adopts this resolution stating that a respondent is hereby censured as a penalty for having violated the act as set forth herein, and be further resolved that the board is ordered to read this resolution at its next regularly scheduled public meeting, to post in such places that the board posts its public notices for a period of no less than 30 days, and to publish it online on the district's website if available for no less than 30 days. And be further resolved, the board shall provide the commission with the minutes once adopted from the meeting at which it reads the within resolution. Are we gonna have, anybody want to move that or? Okay, I mean, if no one's gonna move it. I mean, I'll move.
I'll second.
Ms. Brogan,
Abstain.
Mr. Donnie,
Abstain.
Mr. Mahmood,
Yes.
Ms. Quack,
Yes.
Mr. Limbo.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Mr. Donnie, it's the approval of bills.
Yes, so I reviewed the bills, and they are all in order, so I moved the bills, as listed on the agenda.
I'll second.
Ms. Brogan,
Yes.
Mr. Donnie,
Yes.
Mr. Mahmood,
Yes.
Ms. Quack,
Yes.
Mr. Limbo.
Yes. Board member announcements. Brogan.
Yes, thank you. I just want to give a shout out to the marching band. In spite of the rain 2 Saturdays ago, they did a great performance at Gym One. With a lot of the parents participate, clapping, and at the end, each child could bring up one of their parents or family members to play along with them, try the percussions, be part of the horn section, figure out how to march. And it was great fun. And so John Luckenbell and the other band coaches are just great. So it was a really fun afternoon. So great. And they made the best of it. With all that rain, they couldn't really be doing it outside. So they came in early that day and practiced in the gym and did all the staging. So it was great. And the performance itself is, I don't know if you've gotten a chance to see it. Performance is pretty spectacular. So good for them. Just a reminder to the community that Access Weekend is this weekend, Friday for, there's a program for older adults, but on Saturday and Sunday, their program. So do check that out. There is we've seen an increase in vaping There is a program, pretty sure I sent this information to Christine. It's a county program, but it's a virtual town hall on Let's Talk Vaping. And it's a panel discussion on October 19th from 7 to 9 PM to address youth vaping epidemic and what you can do to make sure your outlets are not marketing or selling to minors, and how you as a parent might have some conversations with your child. So I think it would be worthwhile. So if I haven't sent that, I will send that again, but I'm pretty sure I did. Finally, I know that this is a work in progress, but I did want to say to the high school in their presentation to parents, and they've done a number, for the parent presentation and information to our senior parents, to freshman parents. But the class profile for 2023, when you look at the data and the information put together on one page, well done. And I thank the staff for doing that. And I know there was some discussion about that. So I think that's all. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Donnie. I mean, we had a very busy couple of, I always thought the beginning of the school, now I feel like it's even more. We had this past weekend, even though unfortunately with the rain, I know Mr. Shores talked about, the unfortunate flooding. But there still was, just like they said with the band, there was a lot of activities for the kids. I was able to go, Travell had their, the Boy Scouts with Travell Hawes in Somerville, they did their rocket launch. Usually they have it on at Graydon, but they've had to move it to had a Travell. Awesome, the kids loved it. Unfortunately, the wind, I think there might be a few rockets on the roof now of Travell, but have their names on it. The kids will always love that. Ms. Bronstein also spoke about the Project Interact kids with at the PBA Food Truck Festival, which was the second annual food truck festival. It's got exponentially larger in size. They had to shut down Linwood Avenue, and they had about 10 food trucks, rides. They had a lot of stuff for Access Ridgewood, and Stigma Free Ridgewood was there, and it was really great fundraiser for pediatric cancer, but also it was a great community event that everybody really came out. And I had some very different things from the food trucks, and also saw the kids, the high school kids always were great manning the rides and the games. We also got, we're looking here, a couple of things coming up. We all got the invitation. I think a bunch of us said we could try and attend. The Stables having the Ridgewood Arts Foundation, which is going to be a lot of showcasing local artists and some kids as well. That's going to be starting on the 4th of October through the 27th, but on the 8th, which is Sunday, between 4 and 6, they're having their grand opening, which will have light refreshments and see some of the art. So I always suggest everybody comes out for that. Jamboree, which is, as we all know, is a huge production, and they are a fundraising powerhouse. They have their, is it their open house or is it auditions on the 11th, 12th, and 16th? I think it's
the audition.
I think it's the auditions, right?
I
But
mean,
they did,
this would be the time they
Yeah.
start doing that. Yeah.
they
Hearing
did
about
have an open house at Park West, but I think if you go to their website, if you're interested, I think they definitely find a part for everybody. And as we all know, we've all gone to the performances. They are very talented people. It's Fire Prevention Month, so I know that I saw the fire departments going around to all the schools. I think they went to Ridge today. The kids always like to see, playing all the trucks and everything. That was great. I saw a couple fundraisers popping up. I can't always get to all of these, but Orchard is having the 5th grade fundraiser. They're doing a movie outdoors. They're doing the Haunted Mansion, which is next week, 2 weeks. I think that's gonna be really fun. It's a great movie if you haven't seen it. I think it's gonna be, this one's after our next meeting, but I just was noted the Willard is having a masquerade ball they're trying to fundraise for a new auditorium, which looks really outstanding. It's gonna be a fun time. Travell's doing a parent social, which is a 90s theme. So that looks like it's gonna be a lot of fun as well. Sunday, this coming Sunday, partnership with the town, but I know a lot of kids like to do it. They're doing their bike, their learn to ride for the bikes. That's always a very important thing. We started that a few years ago. And, May traditionally is, the walk and bike to school, but it's always great to have the kids, kind of learning now. So we were safe out there.
So that was postponed
It was
because of the rain,
postponed, right?
right?
Because of the rain.
So when is it?
It's Sunday.
Sunday,
So we're hoping that we can, we're gonna do another couple sweeps, but hopefully the most of the debris is gone for them there. So that's always a good, and they usually do one also in the spring as well. So this is kind of what my notes here. And then finally, just, I know one of the callers actually mentioned it. It's and actually Mr. Monahan also, it is it's World Stop Bullying Month. And a lot of the schools are doing a this week, the week of respect. And today, and I'm just pulling it up here, I want to make sure I say the right thing. It's wear blue, so hence why I'm wearing blue for stopping bullying, and it's our week of respect. I think one of the callers mentioned how much misinformation is out there, especially like on social media, and it's great to come to these meetings so we can get more information. And if we don't know something, we can learn, and as well as respect for each other, respect for everybody. Mr. Monahan talked about there's a lot of, we see an increase of HIV, but we're also seeing an increase of people don't always understand what they're saying and how it affects people. And that's a great takeaway that I took away from that from his presentation as well. So I think that's a great thing. And I just wanted to highlight that today was wear blue today. So I think that was great. That's all I have. I think that was great. So moving on to committee reports, I can say that I know finance, curriculum, and facilities were all meeting this week. I don't think we've met yet. I know we're meeting on Thursday. So anybody else have any?
I just want to mention that the safety committee, there was a concern raised about Clinton Avenue.
Okay.
It's blocked off. It's across from Ridge School. It's closed in the morning, and it's closed again in the afternoon, so students can walk there. No sidewalks on that street. So there was some concerns raised, and but again, we've got a great partnership with our village and our police, and so the police were going. The new village manager happened to come to that meeting at that time, and so I know he's talked to Chief Lyons, and there's going to be some monitoring of that. And when I've gone past now on my way to work, I see that the sign is out there both morning and afternoon, and so I appreciate the police involvement there to monitor, make sure that safe, and to relearn that it's open all summer long, and all of a sudden you got to relearn it. And there are landscaper trucks that are going down, or maybe somebody's getting some repairs to their house, so we just to be very conscious of that. So but I was grateful for that, and it was a good conversation we had with the village on that.
I know that stretch has been as big every few years it comes brought up, and I know the Citizen Safety Committee is very in tune with it. So that's great, because I know a couple other things, especially this time of year, everyone has to learn their traffic patterns again, and even going to work, we all have to remember that there's a lot more kids out there, there's a lot more cars out there. So it's definitely.
So that will be back on the agenda next month, just to have a follow-up and see where we are, if
Great.
there has been an improvement. Yeah.
Excellent.
Well, actually, heads up, tomorrow, we do have the joint Fields Committee with Board of Ed and Village Council. Keith Cook will be there to give us an update on the fields conditions. It will be only through Zoom at 7 a.m. And I don't know where the links are, but I have it. So it's been shared around. If you reach out, I think Keith Cook or you'll be able to dial in.
Great. Thank you. So it's not in person, just Zoom.
No,
Got it.
no, it got changed to 7 a.m. Zoom only.
Got it. So I know there are a lot of, and if anyone's still listening, I don't know if they are, but, a lot of the questions about, we do have a great partnership with the village, and there's a lot of, some of these questions also, that would be a great spot to either send or, because there's only so much we can do. So that's excellent. Oh, you know what? One other thing I forgot on my notes too. Today, this is really kind of cool. I don't know if anyone heard about this, about 85 fourth graders came after school, and they're doing like a cumulative art project throughout town. They're painting, for Oktoberfest and just painting the community. So keep an eye out for some windows and everything painted around town. So it's about 85 fourth graders from all of the elementary schools. So that's going to be pretty neat to see our artwork of our kids displayed.
Is it similar to what Hohokus does?
Yes.
Is that what they're
Yeah.
doing?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
So
Nice.
excellent. Okay, discussion items.
I just had
Oh,
two things, if I could. And they're just follow up, and perhaps because there hasn't been any meeting, there hasn't been any discussion, but I wanted to know on Friday with all of the rain, how did our Ridgewood High School science roof hold up? Did we have any leaking? Okay. Okay. And I wondered if has there been have we followed up on needing to put the vents in, in the science wing roof? The vents weren't bid, and now we're going to do it afterwards and then have the vents installed. I just wondered if that is.
We're going to be inventorying with the facilities committee this Thursday, all the open projects and where they fit in with respect to ROD grants and direct purchase and direct install rather, and the timelines.
Okay, and so that at that time, you also would be deciding on whether to do the coping on the science wing roof or not?
Yeah, exactly. That's a change order request that we got from the architect.
Okay. And also you'll be looking at where we are with the HVAC rooftop units, the 4 for Ridge, 12 for Hawes, and 8 for the high school. That would all be on your agenda.
Yes, we've asked Mr. Smith to inventory the status of all those projects, and again, to confirm, it appears that there were some projects that may have been included in our ROD grants that were actually part of the direct install, and we're looking to sort that out. So we hope to have that cleaned up and sorted out and reported out accurately to the facilities committee on Thursday for discussion, which of course the minutes and the agenda will be available for the whole board.
Great. Thank you.
Excellent.
Mark, just a quick one for you on the vape topic that Sheila brought up. So a few years ago, we installed vape detectors at the high school. And the administration at the time was saying that it is a problem in the middle schools and the high school. Kids are starting early in the middle schools. But we had said, let's just start with the vape detectors at the high school, and eventually we'll do it for the middle schools. So maybe just something to look into. When we did it, it was pretty cheap. I think we did the whole high school for like 30 to 40K because it was about $1,000 for the actual vape detector. And then I believe it was Dan at the time used our IT team to run the Ethernet wires to each of the bathrooms. We actually didn't have to use a vendor to install them. We installed them ourselves. And so each bathroom cost us about $2,000 to do. So if it's that cheap still, I would love to see us, if we need it, to put it into the middle schools, because the earlier we can detect these kids, I mean, maybe we can save them from being addicted for so many years later. And I saw in the safety report we had that we've had 0 incidences in GW and BF for the last 5 years. So either our kids are angels or we're just not catching them, right? So I think it's the latter probably.
Maybe Ms. Brogan at your next municipal alliance too, see if they're seeing anything younger.
We do, yeah. I mean, there is some vaping, but it hasn't been too widespread. Though we were talking about trying to bring more vaping information down to the 5th grade. The health department has been a significant partner in all of this, and so has Federated in funding Tim Shoemaker, who this year, the middle schools hope to have speak with the 6th and 7th grade. And that's at least, that was the thought when the Municipal Alliance met last week. But I think this is part of our health department, health curriculum, and it's right, trying to get through it. In fact, when I saw the discipline report and the number of vaping incidents at the high school, I mean, we're a big high school, so it's not huge, but it's enough to have concern. So, broadly, besides a suspension, it's important to do other things besides, and Mark outlined, I'd asked him about that. Mark did outline a few things that the school is doing, and so did Kevin Feely at the Municipal Alliance. But it's, you can punish a child, but if you're not really talking about the cause and why, and addiction and the ill effects of vaping, then, I'm punished for a day or two.
Yeah, but it's so all of these are important. I'm not saying
Yeah.
these are not important, but after we installed the detectors in the high school, Basil told us multiple times these have been the best thing ever, because first of all, you could keep in mind vaping is different than smoking, right? There's no smell. And so the easiest place these kids are doing it are in the bathrooms. Nobody's there. Then what's worse is that they're hooking other kids in the bathroom, because a kid walks in to use the bathroom. Hey, you want to try this? They try it. Then they're now hooked and addicted as well. And so what Basil was telling us before is that you'd be shocked how many of these kids we'd catch. And almost all of them would just say, yeah, I have a problem and I need help. It wasn't combative. It wasn't like, don't punish me, or why did you, they were actually appreciative that they got called out. So if it costs us 20,000-30,000 to install these in the middle schools and help save these kids. Again, if the administration there tells us, hey, we don't have a problem and these kids are angels, then we don't need it.
No,
But I don't think that's going to be the case. I'm just saying.
No, I don't
that could be
disagree with you that the vaping detectors, have brought it up, and we've caught children, but there comes a point where you can catch the children and you can punish them, but you also want to make sure you're educating them.
Yeah, I think we're having two conversations, and I'm actually meeting with the middle school administrations tomorrow about wellness and a lot of these topics. So why don't I bring it up to them and, see what kind of numbers they're getting. And I agree with you, Ms. Brogan, like, don't waste a teachable moment. That all discipline is a teachable moment. I mean, sometimes it has to have different levels of consequences, but never lose that opportunity to help redirect somebody.
And I'm not
and make
saying
a better
by the way,
decision.
I'm not saying consequences. I'm just saying at least we know that they're doing it, and then we
without
have the conversation.
Without the data, we don't know how
It's
to
like having
move
data.
forward.
It's like having it on our math
Is it
scores.
1,000 or is it zero?
Exactly.
Different response.
Perfect. We get tomorrow. That's fine.
Yeah.
You're next.
Next.
Ms. Cott, if you could include my comments into the written record, please. Okay. So since there is no expiration on truth, transparency, and accountability, I would like to reiterate again the need for an honest, professional dialogue on ethics, conflicts of interest, governance, and specifically committees. This agenda includes a censure resolution. Why are conflicts of interest and ethics so important to resolve for proper governance? Because when a board member has a conflict of interest, she or he could prioritize personal interests, benefiting partners or who have you, over the district business. For example, we do not have 2023 board goals and the year is almost over. I take this job very seriously. I believe we all do. You know, we've given up important family events, anniversaries, birthdays. Valentine's Day was here. I don't know if you remember that one year. It's like, you know, no need for, if you don't have a reservation at a nice restaurant, just come to everyone's welcome at 49 Education Center. So we all have sacrificed, and this job really does mean a lot. And I take this so seriously that I actually qualified for the Master Board Member exam in my 3rd year. And I have a pin, and voila. Here you go. I think I'm the only Master Board Member here certified.
I actually got that
You
in
did?
August. Yes.
Wonderful.
Thank you.
So
And Ms. Brogan also has
actually,
it.
if you have, I don't know if you wanted to talk about that, because I think if you have an ethics consideration, I think it does not qualify anymore, it gets rescinded. So I wasn't going to bring that up. So I assert this, extending the same respect and courtesy that I have always accorded you. I am your colleague. I am your equal, and we need to work together. Do not marginalize my voice. Do not please shout and try and drown me out. We really do need to work together. We have important business ahead. And there should be no elasticity when it comes to ethics, conflicts of interest. Please prioritize the board business first.
Are you done? I'm sorry. I didn't want to cut you off. Thank you. Thank you for your comments. I think we've been very clear that there are no conflicts, but thank you. We appreciate you and all your hard work, and congratulations. You joined me and Ms. Brogan as also Master.
I mentioned that, but
Thank you.
that's it. You're just going to thank me, and we are not going to proceed to talk about this. That the fact that we have not had this week, finally, we're going to have meaningful committee meetings. But up until then, we have been frozen. We have been static. And I do feel that we have not necessarily made the progress that we could have. And instead, I feel very much that we have not substantively resolved this. You do not respond to emails. I feel very cognizant of the fact that each one of us, we contribute. And it would be helpful if we could work together. And I'm not seeing the fruits of it right now.
Okay, well, thank you. I don't know what email, because I do respond to all the emails, but I apologize if maybe one of yours slipped through that I didn't respond to, but I usually do. But I guess not.
I think that when I pointed it out to you, I hate to say this, but you told me that you actually invited the human resources director as if I'm an employee of the district. And I told you at that time, I'm your colleague. I am your equal.
I
And
think
so I
you're
have to
talking
feel
about,
like
but that
I-
did not happen. I think you're
No,
confused right now.
You called me confused too. This is the second time you have called me confused. I am not a child. I am not confused. I am your colleague, and I have some questions for you, and I would like a response, and we need to work together. For example, where are the board goals? Can we work on this?
Okay.
The year is almost over. So maybe follow up to this. You could circulate the board goals or just.
Understood. Okay. Thank you.
But on the board goals, we were not really doing board.
Yeah, we
goals.
No,
discussed
how can
that.
we not? But see, that's what I
I
mean.
thought that was what we.
We had
No,
discussed it with,
August 29th.
Actually, at that meeting, we
Yeah.
had
Or very
decided,
few, I mean.
right, the fact that we don't
So what's
know.
different this year that we don't have to do that?
No,
Yeah.
I thought that we talked about it because the
Yeah.
board, these are so extensive, right?
But those are-
So-
No,
I know
that-
that's the
right.
superintendent and that the board goal was
To get-
maybe the REA contract.
yes. We had
But
discussed
not
that.
having a lot of goals. I remember having that discussion,
Yeah.
just sort of, but
If
that
we want to have
said,
more board goals, but I do recollect that, that
Right,
conversation.
so again, it's a conversation and it needs to be memorialized. We need to agree as a consensus, as a full board. None of that has occurred. So in fact, you didn't know, I didn't remember a board member.
We just
identified
told
it.
you, I did remember.
No, you just said you didn't know. And
No,
you
I
just
never said
mentioned-
that. You're.
Okay, actually, please don't tell me that I'm confused again. That would be really hurtful, especially since you're wearing blue to show
I
respect or whatever.
absolutely did not
please.
say that, but don't.
You did say I was confused and I was really taken aback.
Oh, before, I think you were, yes. 'cause
Oh,
that didn't-
before I was confused.
I said I think you don't understand, because I don't remember.
No, please don't is this a colloquial term for gaslighting? Please don't say that. Do not call me
Okay,
confused. I'm not confused.
Okay.
And I'm not a child. And right now we're dealing with board goals. So it sounds like Ms. Brogan said that she felt like we had discussed it. I didn't think we'd close the loop. What are the board goals? Let's memorialize it. What is so different this year that we don't have written board goals that people can make us accountable? Is that fair? I think that's very fair for us to be like, well, I thought it was this. I think it's the REA. Maybe you only have two. I don't find that acceptable this year. So, or any year. I think you've mentioned several times that we should be very proactive in that. So if this is a discussion time and we've just finalized the district goals, maybe this is a great time to talk about board goals.
is there a board goal that you would like to see?
Yes, actually, committees, efficient and ethical and equitable distribution of committee structures, understanding governance. We had Matt Lee come and speak from New Jersey School Board Association on committees. Where are we with that? That was a great training workshop.
So that's a big topic. I think let's put that on the agenda for the next meeting, like discuss, do we want to do them? And then what do they look like?
Yeah, I think that we need to have a discussion on
And I
board goals.
tried to send it out. I'm sorry that I tried to update the whole board, and me and the superintendent have been discussing with committees. I think it is a great board goal. So right now, because of the new administration, we're trying to keep everything basically, there was some ideas from the administration. Now we're saying, listen, let's how we were originally acting, and there may be a lot more inefficiencies because we have a lot of committees as a whole. But I think that's how we're gonna, till we can all disagree on a proper structure. I think that's what we should do. And so we're going kind of back to where we were, where when the new superintendent had come in, we're trying to kind of work together and make some just more efficiencies. So I think it's a
So
great.
I actually think so. So Hanju, on your point on the committees, I actually followed up with Mark in the last few days on the point you brought up about the committees.
Yeah.
And Mark told me he had some ideas. I just don't know if they're memorialized yet. But Mark, maybe if you don't mind, I'm gonna call on you. Do you want to kind of share what you were thinking? Because I know you had already Hanju's comments in mind and just a lot of our comments in mind. So I think there's a lot of thoughts you had on the committee structure.
Yeah, thank you so much, Mr. Mahmood. So just in general, I mean, I think that a dynamic that I've been sharing with, and I don't know if I've actually had a chance to share with all of you, so I'll just say it again here, is a dynamic that I didn't consider when I was thinking about the committee structure that had come to work so effectively in my prior district, is that with the size of our board, each committee is only going to have 2 individuals on it, which means that if we have any kind of disagreement, which can certainly happen on a committee, we often have a 50-50 split on that committee. And that could potentially make for increased complications on matters that really shouldn't be, maybe should not be so complicated. But really what I realized is that I think every board and every district comes to a working structure that works for them for a reason. And I know that when I was interviewing with the board and we were talking about my transition here, that I was rather adamant about some vision for some changes to the committee structure. I think talking about shaking up the committee structure has caused a little bit of uncertainty. I'm certainly uncertain about adding a lot of committee work in addition to having 2 meetings a month, but I understand that 2 meetings a month are important to this board and to the community as well. So what I'm just really recommending right now is that I'm just going to slow down my recommendations here at this point, and I'm going to recommend that since we only have 5 board members, that we do operate more on a committee as a whole basis. But when I say that, meaning that the way that we've been doing business in this meeting and the last meetings, we seem to be doing a good job of, like, the district goals are a great example of us being able to get work done at each meeting, and that can accumulate and then result in a resolution that's really effective at this meeting. That said, there are matters for facilities and finance and curriculum that just require some work and aren't particularly controversial. So it makes sense to me to maintain those committees. So for right now, what I just would recommend is that we work with the committee structure that everyone's familiar with. So finance, facilities, and curriculum, matters that pertain to human resources, and any matter that is pertains to really is an issue that requires a decision by the board. We should do our best to try to handle that as a board as a whole. Because there's only 5 members, I think that's I think we can accomplish that. As time goes on, if we try it that way, we'll always tweak and refine, and we might see some opportunities to improve processes. Maybe we'll see a need for a committee that hasn't existed before. I mean, we'll certainly have to have periodic policy meetings. We'll certainly have to have negotiation meetings. But I'm interested in in adjusting my approach to accommodate what has come to work reasonably well for the board.
So you're saying, Mark, that potentially finance, facilities, and curriculum would stay to be their own committees, and then HR personnel and pretty much whatever else is out there would just be committee of the whole of the board, since we're kind of doing that work anyway today.
That's what I'm proposing for right now.
But so I think we can have a deeper discussion on committees because it's just something that has come up verbally. So sometimes having it written down and understanding exactly what that would look like. But one of the things to consider is that we should come together and figure out what works for us, because it's the superintendent is a non-voting member of the board. He is our chief and most valued employee, but we have to, in terms of governance, we have to figure that out. So,
and Ms. Clark, I'm sorry, I should have caveated with that part too, that like all the things that I just said, though, the committees are the board's committees. And that's really, and that really is the spirit of what I'm trying to say is that there is a committee structure here, and it's not dysfunctional. So quite the opposite. I think the series of the cadence of meetings and the committees, I think, have a lot of promise. So, but the board should be clear about how they want to organize themselves around committees. And I'm happy to be here as a resource, but I'm also happy to work with what your needs are.
right. And if a new committee should be so desired, it needs to be approved by the board and the membership discussed, et cetera, et cetera. So I think that's definitely, I would like to bring it back at the next meeting, like Mr. Mahmood mentioned. And we should make it, I think it deserves to be a board goal to have functioning committees with equitable distribution of responsibilities. That's one. I think second one would be to support the administration in their whole establishing a baseline for the budget and for the master plan of all the facilities. When I mean supporting, that could mean not administrating, not actually doing but in terms of being really bringing the feedback from the community so that as they do that deep dive and establish the baseline, we can just, for example, as that came up, it bubbled up the idea about the Glen School, and that could be a year or two. So us being the supervisory entity, keeping that in the back of the mind and supporting and giving some feedback to the administration so that when they, for example, for the facilities plan, you could prioritize and say the high school because it has the most students, and then maybe the Glen School next, or things like that. We could help with that. I think that was a really interesting idea about the Glen School. So I would like to keep that as our goal, to investigate and examine and explore and support what the administration's findings could be to help us make our decisions. It could be next year or the year after, but we do need that. The flood mitigation, we really need a permanent, even if it's a very dramatic in scale, but really big picture rather than these, what we've traditionally been positioned, because our budget have been, respecting the budget. Sometimes when you have a certain baseline expectation of what your budget is, then you may be constrained. But given the level of flooding that we've experienced, the number of times that we've had to do remediation, by now we could have done something much more dramatic. So
from board goals perspective, Ms. Brogan had a lot of good ideas or concerns last year. That every meeting she had concerns that the board was not doing some of the governance things. And those concerns have not just disappeared, right? So those should all be part of the board goals.
yeah,
There were lots of concerns.
yeah.
So if we want to do board goals, and I'm okay with that, maybe we can either send them to Ms. Cott, myself, or Ms. Schwartz, and we can kind of compile like we did with the district goals. And we have to just be mindful, obviously, of things that we can do, so I agree, if we want to review, because that's been something we're trying to do for a long time, reviewing committees or, doing our board evaluations and just things that we can control. Because a lot of the things we are talking about, the budget, the flood mitigation, all these things kind of stem from what we just directed the district to do. So that's why, we had this discussion previously in August, where we said, we're kind of directing the district to do our goals are flowing from the district goals. We're showing that we want to look at our facilities. We want to show that we are interested in the DEI and all these different things that we care about, and we kind of made our district goals that way.
I think from my perspective, I'm mainly concerned about all these suggestions or concerns that Ms. Brogan had last year on board governance.
So let's do it. I'm totally fine
So
with that.
those board governance should be a goal. We need to,
Yeah.
everything that from Matt Lee's presentation for committee working, committee notes, minutes, all of that, like who's attending the committees, whether our committees are reflected on our website or not, all of that is part of our board governance. The board evaluations, the presentations, all of that.
Let's put it on the agenda for next meeting.
Yeah, so if everyone can just, if you have any ideas, let's kind of, don't send it to each other, obviously, but if we can maybe funnel it to, Ms. Cott, myself, I can always do it just for the board secretary and the superintendent, myself, we can kind of make it one, document that we can work from for next meeting. I think that's good, right?
Thank you.
All
right.
Thank you. All right.
Okay. Was that, we done discussion? Okay. All right, so we have no acceptance of minutes. Do we have, anyone has any other business? Anything else? Okay, we now move to our second comment portion from the public of the evening. I don't think there's anybody back there. I don't think so. There's no one there? Okay. Do we have anybody? I think there are a few hands raised. Okay. Okay, so let's just take some callers. Make my timer.
Hello. Hi, this is Susan Ruan, 705 Kingsbridge Lane. I want to thank the board for doing the study about Glenn, as well as investigating the fields and doing those studies. I just have two comments, and this is related to topics that were discussed during the meeting. One about vaping, and that is that there is a consideration. The zoning board is considering putting a billboard on Route 17, very close to the proximity of BF. I had to go through Hartford, Connecticut last year that had similar billboards. And the only thing that advertised on the billboards were weed dispensary shops and how people could buy weed through the internet or places in Hartford. And given the close proximity to where the BF is to the billboard, I don't know if the Board of Ed should be concerned. I already asked the people for the billboard, will they be advertising similar stuff for that? And they did not comment. It's a concern considering, you're talking about vaping, and yet this is something that is an ad for something a little bit stronger, which I don't think you really want kids to be exposed for. And then the next is the riding of the bikes. Over here, our footbridge is closed, and students from the side of Ridgewood go to BF. And I know in 7th grade, they have a program for the kids to ride their bikes to school. Since the footbridge has been closed, I don't know how they're able to do that safely unless they're doing 1.5 miles through to go around into Hohokus, then to get to BF, which I don't think is very safe. Again, these are incentives that unfortunately this side of Ridgewood has become marginalized. And, I'm not certain, again, if the Board of Ed wants to speak to Village Council. I think they said they're going to finally fix the footbridge. But, I'm not trying to sound, this is like the Glen School, not having our own local school and or neighborhood school, not having a footbridge operational, and yet the kids are at BF that are from Somerville, the other side of Hawes, and Travell can all ride their bikes to school. But these kids over here on this side, it might not be as safe to do that. That was pretty much it. Thank you very much.
Thank you. The Ridgewood resident again.
Jacqueline Hone, I just wanted to thank the board for adding the studies and analysis of fields, facilities, and Glen School. I hope I didn't get that wrong and that it's actually made the list of district goals. If someone could just confirm that for me, please. And I'd also like to discuss a little bit of a sensitive matter that has struck me again. Last time I tuned into one of these meetings, it was at the end of August. And in that meeting, I witnessed something that was a little bit troubling, and then members of the community started to post and write and comment about the same behavior that they found troubling, which was the behavior of the board president towards Ms. Quack. Particularly, many found there was an exchange, and during that exchange, the board president stares down Ms. Quack and aggressively states, "Is there a problem?" Again, today, there was an exchange that was equally uncomfortable to witness, and it was clearly jarring to the board member and to the public as well, to repeatedly tell someone you're confused. And then it's noted that the board president also continues to speak over Ms. Quack. I'm not here to comment one way or another. My question is to ask, as part of the board goals, and I'll just add one thing, for instance, when you're done talking, the board president looks at everyone, is like, "Are we done here?" And maybe it's just not understanding that that comes across as very aggressively. And as part of board goals, maybe one of the goals would be to add if there's some type of training so that this doesn't continue to happen, and understanding that when you're speaking to someone, to speak over them and tell them that they're confused, or to look them down aggressively and to ask, is there a problem or are we done, comes across in a very, very troubling manner, and is really uncomfortable to witness. So as part of a board goal, and I don't know if this is permitted for a public member to ask if there is some form of training that maybe members could go through so that this type of thing doesn't continue, because it seems to rear its ugly head from time to time, and it's really uncomfortable to watch. I'd like to thank you for your time for this evening, and again for the studies, and I would really wish that you would consider adding that to board goals.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Weber?
Thank you, Mr. Lembo. Lori Weber, again, 235 South Irving Street. For the benefit of members of the public that may not understand the purpose of the resolution that was read into the record this evening, I'd just like to say a few things. I mean, the reading of a resolution of censure for a board member is indeed a solemn moment. The role of a Board of Education trustee relies upon maintaining the public trust. That is the basis and the purpose of the School Ethics Act, which provides what constitutes lawful conduct for school board members. These laws mean nothing unless they are enforced. And the only way to hold board members to that standard is by filing a complaint when a violation takes place. The resolution that was read into the record this meeting is documentation that this particular board member was held accountable for violating various ethics laws. I just want to make sure that that's understood, and I thank you for allowing me to speak again.
Thank you. Ms. Milian?
Hi, Christina Millian again. I just wanted to thank Mr. Donnie for his leadership, and actually obviously the entire BOE for their commitment to evidence-based decision-making. And as part of that goal, obviously this includes, providing us, the taxpayers, the new fields study. I was surprised to hear that the last one I think was, I caught 2006, 2007. I mean, 16 years feels way too long to be operating blindly when it comes to Ridgewood Fields. And so I just want to applaud you all for your efforts and thank you. And I would also just like to say and push you all again to please bring in medical experts to assess if turf makes sense in 2023. Evidence-based decision-making should include outside medical experts in our turf decision-making. And in light of the PFAS issues in our town, I do feel like we need a holistic plan, and all of us are responsible for either elevating or decreasing them, from the Board of Education to Village Council to Ridgewood Water. And so I just want to make that clear. I really want medical experts brought in on this turf discussion. And finally, if it's possible, I'd like clarity from the Board of Education if schools can use Shedler, because that was brought up on a social media comment thread. And that was the first time the east side of Ridgewood heard that. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, there's no more callers. There are no more people in the audience. I therefore close the second public comment portion of the evening. Okay. I hereby move that this meeting of the Ridgewood Board of Education be adjourned. Can I second? All in favor? Aye. Have a good night.